What up? What up? What up? Podcast party people. How you doing? How you living? How you hanging? I'm rolling with the Twitch crew right over here. Chilling on a Monday. I always do the intros after I do the podcast, so I have something to talk about. And, you know, sometimes these podcasts go for 2 or 3 hours. So the last thing I want to do is an intro. Then I want to do an intro on another day. And that's what I'm going to do. I'm doing the intro to the Andy Sneap podcast. I got producer extraordinaire, Judas Priest guitarist, Andy Sneap. You know who Andy Sneap is. And if you don't know who Andy Sneap is, you've heard one of his records. Good Lord, this motherfucker's produced so many goddamn records. Holy shit. I'm serious. Not even playing around. I'm going to read you the list in a little bit here. In a little bit, I'll read you the list, though. I'll tell you. Let's see. What can I talk about? I'm excited. Going to be filming a video for a new song that we're dropping pretty soon here. That's happening on Wednesday. Very juiced. Got Mike Sloat, longtime Machine Head director, on board. He's been our director since Imperium Video. Done most of the videos, not all of them, but damn near all of them. And it's cool. We're going to be location. It's all concept and weird and arty and fucked up and nothing makes sense, but who cares because it's provocative. It doesn't need to make sense. It's provocative. It's going to be good, though. I'm excited. It's going to be weird and dark, and I'm really proud of this song. I'm really, really stoked on this song. I think you're going to love it. I think you're going to be fucking stoked. We put a teaser up about it the other day. That's right. A teaser. Everybody's like, what's this? I'm like, we can't tell you. Everybody on Twitch, everybody on Facebook Live was like, what? Tell us about the news. No. Now, just because you have Twitch access, just because you have Facebook Live access, it's not mean. Like it's torture. It's just teasing, just dripping little shit out. I'm the foreplay master. Be driving you crazy by the time that song drops. Yeah, but we're filming a video for it. I'm really stoked. It's going to be sick. It's going to be sick. So doing that coming up. What else? What else we got going? New song should be dropping. I can't tell you when it's going to be dropping. I'm not sure yet, but soon. Very soon. Another teaser dropping this week, actually. Yeah, there'll be another teaser coming this week. It'll be good. What else? What else is going on? I had a good weekend. Wife and I, we're on quarantine. So we're still. I know everybody else is starting to break quarantine and go rage and hang with them. We're still doing our thing. We know too many damn people who got the coronavirus, and so we're just chilling. The wife and I just hang. We got drunk on Friday. Got drunk on Saturday. I got a little too buzzed on Friday. I was like, whoa! I was hammered. We actually got in a little argument, got in a little tiff, and then we were over it after a minute. But it's just like kind of stormed off. I was like, then I put on the Tom Segura Ball Hog comedy special, which you've not seen. You should definitely go see. So fucking funny. It's on Netflix. Tom Segura Ball Hog hour-long comedy special. That motherfucker is so goddamn funny. So I was like, I'll put on Tom Segura. He'll put me in a better mood. Instantly put me in a better mood. I was laughing my ass off. She came in. We started watching it. We were laughing, and so it was over. Woke up the next morning like, I'm sorry for being a drunken jerk. Oh my god. I was like waking up. I was like, why did I get mad? Well, okay, I can't really be mad if I don't remember why I got mad. So that was my big event. And then Saturday we hung out, had another night, and it was just that was a good. No arguments that night. We were like, we're gonna sit on. We have our little spot outside in the backyard, and so we can sit on the right side on the one side, or we sit on the left side. We sat on the left side this time. So then we got in an argument. Like, okay, we're gonna sit on the right side. We won't get in an argument when we sit on the right side of the table, because it's the direction of the table that matters. Yep. But it was fun. We hung, and then we had relations. We had relations that night. It was fabulous. It was fan-fucking-tastic. Super sloppy, drunken relations. And it was a good vibe. We even had relations in the morning, the following morning, which is so rare, but we did. And what else did we do? Nothing really too crazy happened. I jammed with Wyatt again. That was fun. I brought him down here. He ran through some Crazy Train. And then I headed over to Epidemic Ales and picked up my peanut butter stout, which is fucking awesome. And it's fucking strong, too. Holy shit. It's like 9%. Peanut butter stout, baby. That's my shit. Goose creams, which is Grey Goose and Bailey's, and then peanut butter stouts. That's my jam right there. And I have 2 goose creams, 3 peanut butter stouts. Done. That's it. No more, no less. Could probably go less. Probably could have went less. I think it was because I didn't really have a lot to eat that Friday night. I've been trying to do this liquid protein meals, and sometimes I need food. Anyway, it was a good hang. It was a good Saturday. Friday was a little rough. Saturday was wonderful. So that was the weekend. No big adventures. No big, we didn't take the bicycles with flat tires down to Safeway in the dark to buy wine. Nothing like that. But it was a good hang. It was a good hang with Ginevra. Hung out with the kids. Oh, and teaching my son Xander how to drive. So I took him around the neighborhood. I'd taken him to parking lots, and we've been driving around there, this kind of deserted parking lots at the college on the Saturday or something. But then I took him around the neighborhood this time. He was good. He did really good. I was totally stoked. I was well impressed with how good he did. I was like, dude, you're killing it. He was all relaxed and like, oh yeah, 35 miles an hour. I was like, okay, let's do this. So that was good. Anyway, let me read a couple of, I dropped that Mark Hunter podcast. You motherfuckers love yourself some Chimera. Holy shit. You love Chimera. That podcast did super. Hopefully this doesn't play. Don't play.
Putting it back together.
No, I don't want you to play. Okay, there you go. Yeah, got a lot of views, but then the comments, man. Troy Turner says, Chimera was such a great band. I still blast the impossibility of reason to this day. And then there's 8 replies. Just people loving it. Implements of Destruction is awesome. Damn sure. Would have loved to have gone to a Chimera Xmas show. Chimera's back. Resurrection. Impossibility is a great record, says Joshua Yatau. Troy Turner says, it is sure. So many good songs, says Peter Clem. Sick. We need a new Chimera album. Jesus Saves Christ. Listening to Mark and hearing him explain how he get with his feelings, thoughts, effects from his emotion. That's me. Worry about everything, but on the surface, I'm looking fine. A war of emotions inside, says M-Lock. See Before I Die says, cool wanking stories, Rob. Bringing a whole new meaning to Machine Head. Glad I'm not alone. There is love out there. Disciplined Daddy says, I did get to see these guys play at the Agora. It's cool because Camp with Trivium, Ashes Tour, Chimera headline that night, hometown show. I never considered Pass Out New Metal. Thomas Larson says, Rob, shout out. Try and get James Hetfield. Let's see. Ferdico Nogaro says, great show. Mark rules. That documentary is great. Found it after listening to the show. Kick ass. Let's see what else. Cool that he brought up Spine Shank. Chimera and Spine Shank were my top bands back then, says WVUSMC. I'm mostly into black metal and industrial, but Chimera is still my number one pick for metal bands that need to come back, says Wolf Lord. Yeah, a lot of people love it. Funny story about the fist fight. Stan Rice says, man, my 2 favorite singers talking about my favorite shit. This is awesome. Going down Motley Crue and Lamb of God rabbit holes. Great Saturday night. Vodka drinks, Machine Head and Chimera. I love it. Legend Mr. Hunter. Yeah. Rob. Hey, Rob, I'm new to Aaron Casey says, hey, Rob, I'm new to the podcast and started with this one because I'm easily the biggest Chimera fan I knew and still to this day. Thanks for having Mark on. So, yeah, you guys loved it. I mean, great response. I got a lot of emails from a lot of the emails. So, the email is noeffingregrets@gmail.com if you want to write in and tell me who you'd like to see, what you're digging, all that good stuff. Let me see here. Let me see here. We got some winners, by the way, from last week's contest. Let's see. Who were the winners from last week's contest? Keith Stevens got the Killer Be Killed and Carcass vinyl, as did Neil Carter, as did Terry Wells. So it was Keith Stevens, Neil Carter, and T.W. Wells. Your emails were forwarded to Nuclear Blast, and you guys answered the questions for the Killer Be Killed vinyl and the Heartwork reissue. Or no, the Heartwork EP, or not even the Heartwork EP, the Carcass EP that's coming out. So yeah, man, good job. Good job with those. Those are the winners. And I forgot to ask for contest this week. Fuck, I fucking blew it. Anyway, this podcast is brought to you by Nuclear Blast. Heaviest fucking label on earth, god damn it. They got all the good shit. You know they got the best shit. They got Machine Head. You know they got it all. They got Slayer. They got Nightwish. They've got Opeth. They've got Meshuggah. They've got punk rock bands and black metal. They got the Blue Pills. They got Witchcraft. They got all kinds of shit, man. Good stuff. Good stuff. I think they even got Behemoth over there overseas. I know Behemoth's on Metal Blade out here in America, but I think they're on Nuclear Blast overseas. So yeah, they got some great bands, man. And if you're a big fan of physical product, they have super premium vinyl, super premium CDs, digipacks, everything you can need. Head over to nuclearblast.com. They have a German store as well as a U.S. store based out of Los Angeles. They can ship shit anywhere you need. This podcast is also brought to you on the Gas Digital Network. Gas Digital has all kinds of good podcasts. They got the Josta Show, Legion of Skanks. They got libertarian shit. They got conservative shit. They got Democrat shit, news shows, whatever you want. Also, if you subscribe to my podcast, enter code NFR and get 15% off. 15% off your subscription and the first 14 days for free. Enter code NFR and subscribe to No Fucking Regrets podcast on the Gas Digital Network. Also, our podcast today is brought to you. We got a new underwriter, a new sponsor. Let's take a second to talk about our brand new sponsor, IPVanish. IPVanish is an incredibly important tool that will help you protect your privacy online. I don't know how you spend your time online looking at porn. What you do when you're online isn't my business and nobody else's either. If you don't want cyber criminals to steal your data or marketers to track what you're buying, you need IPVanish. IPVanish is a VPN or virtual private network that creates a private connection from your computer, phone, or tablet to the internet, which protects your identity and encrypts your data. VPNs are great for protecting your data from hackers, especially when using public Wi-Fi that isn't secure. With IPVanish, your real IP address disappears, so you can't be tracked online. You get fast, unrestricted internet. IPVanish has more than 1,500 servers in 70 countries, so with IPVanish, you're never going to get stuck with slow site or a video that doesn't load. But what really makes IPVanish great is that it is the only VPN with 24/7 customer support. Bottom line, a VPN is something everyone will be using soon enough, so check out IPVanish to start protecting your data and privacy online. Plans start at just $3.25 per month by going to ipvanish.com/Flynn. That's 75% off the regular price just by going to ipvanish.com/Flynn. Start protecting yourself online today. IPVANISH.com/FLYNN. Boom. Check that shit out. Let me take you over here. I was just reading the Andy Sneap Wikipedia. Andy Sneap. First of all, I met Andy Sneap when he mixed the Machine Head. He was the engineer on the More Things Change album. And it was awesome. He's a great guy. He came in. Actually, we met him on our... So we actually talk about this. I don't want to talk too much about it, but that's how I met him. And then since then, it kind of launched his career. And since then, he has done... Dude, damn near every metal record you've heard, he's done. But let me take you back. This is his... First of all, he was in the band Sabbat, so he put out some fucking cool, very cool thrash metal records. History of Time to Come, Dreamweaver, Morning Has Broken. But then he started producing bands, and first record, English Dogs, punk rock legends, English Dogs. Dearly Beheaded, Exodus, Another Lesson in Violence, Napalm Death, Inside the Torn Apart, Machine Head, More Things Change, English Dogs, All the World's a Raise. And then he did Earth Crisis, Breed the Killers, which I did a collab on. I was a feature. Obituary Dead, Testament, The Gathering, Blaze Bailey, Nevermore, Dead Heart in a Dead World, Fozzy, Testament, Creator, Violent Revolution, Arch Enemy, Wages of Sin, Killswitch Engage, Alive or Just Breathing, Opeth, Deliverance, more Blaze, more Arch Enemy, Caliban, The Opposite from Within, Trivium Ascendancy, Soulfly, Dark Ages, Bullet for My Valentine, Hand of Blood. Let's see. Annihilator Metal, Megadeth, United Abominations, Unearth the March, Devil Driver, Pray for Villains, Megadeth Endgame, Dimmu Borgir, Abracadabra, Accept Blood of the Nations. He did more Arch Enemy, more Testament, more Accept, Saxon Sacrifice. Let's see. Fear Factory, Genexus, Overkill, Grinding Wheel, more Accept, more Overkill, Judas Priest, Firepower, Killswitch Atonement, Testament, Titans of Creation. Dude, that's just part of it. He did Chimera Records, so much shit, man. But I'm going to play you some of his jams. First of all, he was in a great British thrash band that were straight up like true thrash. True thrash. Listen to this shit. He was playing brutal shit back when you were listening to some pop shit. Right here. Where is this? Why is it not playing? There you go. Oh yeah, right here. That's some real thrash right there. He's on the guitar. Now, Andy Sneap is a thrasher. Don't you get it twisted. This is another one. This is called Hosanna in Excelsis. Then he did this record. This is the first record that he did after Machine Head, Skin Lab, When Pain Comes to Surface. Shout out to Steve. Shout out to Snake. Bust it out. You did this record? Everybody knows this shit, right? You all know this shit. We did. I'll be waiting. song. Such a good song. Howard sounds killer. I need to get Howard on the podcast. Talk about Roadrunner United. He did We Will Rise, Arch Enemy, Anthems of Rebellion. You know what I'm saying? This is a banger right here. We Will Rise. I skipped it too soon. He did this. 10-Ton Hammer with Colin Richardson. But we talk about the nightmare that was making this record. Oh my God. Freaking nightmare. Headbang, motherfucker. He did Head Crusher by Megadeth, Endgame. I hadn't heard this song. This song's a banger. The Twitch guys recommended this one. All my Twitch twats. But he did this record. Firepower by Judas Priest. Produced and mixed this. And then they asked him to join the band. Which we get into. Crazy story. Such a cool story. Alfred sounds so good on this. There you go, ladies and gentlemen. My friend of 23 years, Mr. Andy Sneap. Andy Sneap.
Robert Flynn.
How are you, man?
Yeah, good.
I like you've even got your background all set up to be cool. You got amps and guitars and.
Well, yeah, that's where I am, isn't it? Yeah. Studio.
Yes. How you been, man?
Yeah, good. Just, obviously everything changed this year. So I've been in studio mode since February, really. So I was out in Nashville sort of until March with the Accept guys. And then I was kind of almost stuck out there. Managed to get back the day lockdown happened here. And then I've just been, sort of bunkered down in the studio here. Mixing. So fortunately for me, as you know, most bands now are sort of looking at recording and doing records in the downtime, or at least some, something to keep things ticking over. So I've been able to pick up work from that. So yeah, it's not too bad. That's
awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's like, are you not allowed to record in there in your studio?
Yeah, I can do. Yeah.
Oh, you can.
Yeah.
Like the lockdown doesn't prevent that.
Well, I mean, we've just had Evile, the UK thrash band. They've just been in with Chris, who you know. So they've been using the studio, but you've got to be a little bit careful. You can't have people coming and going all the time.
Yeah.
But the way it's gone, people are pretty much record themselves at home, or we're doing it remotely online. We did that with Accept. So I was sort of controlling things in Nashville here, dumping it all onto Dropbox. It was weird. I mean, there's a second delay.
That's fucking awesome.
But it's great. It does work. So I can sort of stream my mix that hang on, how does it work? I stream the mix from their system in Nashville. So I'm listening to it here. So there's a second delay. And I can use TeamViewer to control their computer and then drop the files onto Dropbox and load them into my session.
Crazy. Holy shit. That's fucking awesome.
So it works. And it's actually probably something I'm going to use again in the future, when this is all settled down, because it's just as easy. I mean, you see how obviously easy it is to communicate nowadays. It's not like when we were sending ADATs backwards and forwards on an Earth Crisis album. You know what I mean?
God, no. Right.
Yeah.
Right. Having to send it internationally, which is fucking insane.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you remember the FedEx bills?
Yes. And just trying to find a hard drive and shit. Like, okay, where do I get a hard drive?
Yeah. So what's going on over there?
Just, locked down here too.
Yeah.
I'm pretty much quarantined, like I'm not super quarantined, but I haven't been going to birthday parties and I haven't been seeing a whole lot of friends and stuff. But, I see Zach, I let Zach come over here because I know Zach's super quarantine.
Yeah.
But, it's pretty strict here. Like, it's pretty strict here. Like most of none of the bars are open. Like restaurants are still only serving food outside and stuff like that. So, So bars are closed. Gyms just opened in my county, but not here in Oakland. They're still closed. Yeah,
they're open here, but I mean, it's not the sort of thing I'm going to go anywhere near anything like that at the moment. I think it's a no-brainer, really, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, I go to a gym, but it's like a pretty small. Like, there's only a certain amount of people in the class anyway, so it's like 6 people in the class, and that's it. So I'm just like, I'm cool with that. I can, it's got like the spray, and you can spray everything down. Everybody's got to wear masks, and I'm like, all right. Half of it's outside anyway. So,
yeah, cool.
How are you? How everything's going good though?
Yeah,
just chilling.
Yeah, just chilling.
You're staying busy. People still want to record music and get it mixed. So that's a great.
Yeah, I'm doing
pandemic-proof job that you have right there.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, I'm doing Fear Factory at the minute. I'm just mixing that album. So I've probably got about another week on that. Then I'm straight into Exodus after that. They've
cool.
just finished tracking a couple of days ago, I think.
With my boy Lagooty.
Yeah,
you Bluty Lagooty.
Yeah, so he's been locked in with them. I mean, it is funny making an Exodus album. I always say it's like being in an episode of the Banana Splits. It's insane with those guys. It's always good for comic value with Gary and Tom and everyone. So they're great guys. I mean, I've worked with them since it would have been 97, 98, just after I worked with you, actually. It was that sort of spring after that I was doing all the work out in California. So, yeah, that live album.
That was the live record, right?
Yeah, with Bailoff, yeah.
Yeah, that's fucking awesome.
Yeah. Down
that
at
show
Hyde
was
Street.
awesome.
Yeah.
Oh, were you at Hyde Street?
Yeah.
Back there? Joy.
I went. I don't know if I've seen when I last saw you, but I went back to Hyde Street. This is where we did the guitars for the third time on The More Things Change, didn't we, at Hyde Street?
Yes.
And it's the first time I'd worked with Rob, and it was the first time I'd been working in America. And this was it was Thanksgiving '96, wasn't it? I remember we had Thanksgiving, and then we started the next day, didn't we?
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And I went back to Hyde Street. It's got about a year ago now when Priest were playing the venue that's just down the road from there.
Oh, right. You guys played the Warfield, and it was just right up the street. Yeah.
And I could not believe the amount of homeless people up there now. I mean, it's horrendous, isn't it? Absolutely horrendous.
I mean, it's always been like that. It's always been like that.
I don't remember it being as bad. I know it was bad. I knew it was bad when we were up there all those years ago. But now I just could not believe how bad it actually is around that whole area now. Maybe I just didn't take it in before. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that could have been it. And it is definitely, I mean, it's always been bad. The
Yeah.
area is called the Tenderloin for as long as I've been a kid, because that's where the record vault used to be. So me and my friends used to take BART out there, which is like the subway. And then we'd have to walk a mile and a half up all those streets to get to the record vault. And so you're just like homeless people and junkies and transvestites. And we're just like, Jesus Christ.
I know. It's proper zombie apocalypse up there, isn't it?
Fucking gangbangers. And I mean, just like, that area, even just by the Warfield now, is fucking insane.
There's people shooting up in the feet outside the backstage door.
It's like, I mean, you open the backstage door and they're fucking. It's fucking the craziest shit.
Mm.
I mean, like, it's always been bad, but it's especially bad now. Like, and it's funny too, because when I got friends who come, everybody wants to like rag on California now, like, oh, fucking California, and like like San Francisco's some like hippie fucking flower filled wonderland. And I'm like, yeah, nope. Where are you playing? We're playing the Warfield. I'm like, oh, okay, have fun with that. And tell me how much you think it's wonderland after walking around for 3 blocks and getting mugged at 2 p.m.
Yeah. Oh.
It's funny. I was watching some interviews with you, and I was doing some research, and I was like, all the interviews I swear to God, like all of the interviews I watched ask you the exact same questions.
Oh yeah. How did you start? How did you get into it? Yeah.
And I was just like, I fucking could give a I mean, maybe because I've known you for so long and, like whatever, but I just thought I wanted to talk about, just a bunch of different stuff today with you, because I feel because I feel like, there's a whole story, there's a whole Andy Sneap story that's never been told to the world. And I know a good chunk of it.
Some of it doesn't need telling to the world.
It so needs to be shared.
Oh no.
So needs to be shared with the world. But, my first introduction to you was at Par Street Studios, and back then, and you were a known guitar player, I'm not well known, but like a, renowned guitar player from Sabbat.
Yeah, and, in the thrash sort of circle, sure. I got a name for myself. Yeah. Kind of like you had with Violence in a way, it's that same sort of thing really, wasn't it?
Totally.
Obviously, you had the thing, you're in the States and we're in the UK and Europe, and we had a good following going in the UK. We'd been on the cover of Kerrang and Metal Hammer, done Radio 1 sessions, and we'd done 3 albums with Noise, so we'd done okay over there, over here rather. So yeah, we felt like it was.
Were your parents musical? Like, was anybody in your family musical?
Nothing. No, absolutely nothing at all. No. I mean,
you kind of grew up. You live even right now. You live in the same basic area that you kind of grew up, right?
Yeah. I'm about 10 miles away from where I grew up. Yeah. I mean, it's a nice part of the UK, really. In Derbyshire. I mean, you've been here. Yeah. So it's great.
Gorgeous.
Yeah.
It's like being in a Led Zeppelin song. It is. Like all those,
in the valley.
You got the walls made out of like the stones and like it's just so fucking gorgeous, like green countryside.
Proper, English countryside here, yeah. So so it's a nice place to grow up as a kid, and I sort of flitted around a bit. When I left home, I lived in Nottingham for 10 years, and then spent a lot of time out in America, sort of coming backwards and forwards, and finally got the place here. But the studio's been here nearly 20 years now, on the farm here.
That's awesome.
It feels very settled here,
For sure. Yeah. I mean, I remember when you were building it.
That's right.
Like it was only partially, I came over. I don't know why I.
That's right. It was the blackening? Was I doing a test master on the blackening for you?
Oh, Ashes. That was Ashes. It was Ashes.
Because you were at the chapel, weren't you? And we came over here, and you stayed in the house next door here, and we did it at the old studio, didn't we? I think, or something.
Yes. Yeah.
That's
so it was kind of like a warehouse. Yeah.
Yeah. It's the old. That was actually
right
where
Sainsbury's.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's where Sabbat used to rehearse up there. That's how the studio sort of developed up there.
Nice.
So yeah, I mean, I just basically moved all the gear from there to here and built this up. It was an ADAT studio to start off with, and then just built the whole Pro Tools rooms up here. So yeah, it worked out. Yeah.
When you, I was reading some stuff on you, and you started playing guitar pretty young, man, like 12 or 13 or
12,
something,
yeah,
right?
12, yeah.
Yeah, that's
And
amazing.
I formed Sabbat when I was 15. So I was writing the stuff that was on the first Sabbat album, I was writing when I was 15. Which it didn't seem mad at the time, but when I look back now, and like my brother's kids when they were 15, and they were still children to me, you know.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
And the fact I was recording my first album in Germany when I was 18. It seems insane now when I think about it. You know, the amount of kind of success we had and recognition from sort of when I was 18 through to 21. I mean, you think you know the world then, don't you? But you haven't got a clue about it. So,
Right.
Yeah, I mean,
what's the first? I mean, because I've listened to Sabbath many times, and I've listened to it, just leading up to this interview, and especially that first album's fucking brutal. Like it's fast as fuck. It's like it really. And I was curious about this because I know we've talked about our mutual love of Bay Area thrash, but I was wondering if there was like a Possessed influence ever in Sabbath.
No, there wasn't. I wasn't really into Possessed, but I'll tell you the thing that really put us on a course for writing the material for the first record. Do you remember the Studio 54 video with Exodus, Slayer,
and Venom? Ultimate Revenge.
Yeah, I remember sitting in my parents' front room with Fraser, the bass player, watching that. He'd bought a copy and we got it. And I was going, this is what we want to be doing. This is what we, and it was Slayer then straight away, Exodus, Merciful Fate. I love Merciful Fate. I still do. Those first two albums.
Oh my God.
So we were really pulling influences from that musically. At least I was. Just the way the style of the riffing.
Is that the first thrash thing that you hear though? Is the Ultimate Revenge? Is that the first?
No, I was always listening to Tommy Vance on Radio 1. I don't know if do you remember the Friday Rock Show on the BBC? You probably don't know that. But Tommy used to do he's not around anymore, unfortunately, but he used to do 2 hours on Friday night starting at 10 o'clock. And he used to play a load of stuff, the heaviest stuff. He'd play like Agent Steel and Metal Church and, Priest and mix it all up with a load of sort of rock stuff as well. But he was always, maybe play a Metallica track or an Anthrax track. There'd always be something thrown in there for the heavy end of the spectrum. So I'd be there with my cassette player, recording all these bands, 2
awesome.
hours, and
that's what you did too, man. That's what you did. Like you recorded those songs on your cassette player.
You'd have Tommy Vance on Friday night, and you'd have Kerrang, which was fortnightly back then. And you'd just scour Kerrang, trying to find little bits of information about any bands that you're into, any tours that were coming through.
Right.
And that was really the only kind of connection you had. Obviously, there was tape trading happening. So, once the band got up and running a bit, I was writing to all the people that we still know who was doing the tape trading back then. So that was that really this sort of underground scene of fanzines, following Tommy Vance and Kerrang. It was the only way of communicating with metalheads around the world. But I was the guy in the band doing it who was sort of networking in a way.
Right.
So yeah, I mean that was my first. I got into thrash quite early because I used to go to a lot of record fairs. We used to have them in Sheffield and Derby and Nottingham, and you'd be able to go and find like a Manowar album or like an Exciter album or something like that.
Yes.
And you'd really sort of root through all these bands that you'd heard rumors about, and you'd find one or two that you really liked. So that's how we got into Exodus early, like the first Metallica album. I remember. When Master of Puppets came out, buying it on the day it came out because we'd all been into Ride the Lightning so much. And I think they'd only done one. I think they'd done the Lyceum Ballroom in London on Ride the Lightning, and it was the only time they'd been over here before that. So
okay.
We were sort of there when all this thrash was beginning to happen and creep over to the UK. So as a band, we were sort of one of the first in the UK doing it. We were sort of seen as one of the leaders. Yeah,
totally. No, I for sure. I mean, like my friend was trading with somebody in your camp, and we got the early stuff, and so we were like, "Oh, a UK band, crazy!" Because the Germans kind of had the head start too. Like Germans got a little bit of that head start.
Creator and Destruction and Sodom, and that's how we kind of ended up on Noise Records as well. Because obviously Carl, who who ran Noise, was, he'd got all the German bands. There's like SPV that were doing a lot of them as well. But he was looking a bit further afield by this time. So when we popped up, Music for Nations didn't want us, so.
Noise would have been, what, they had Venom still at that point?
No, that was Neat you're thinking of.
Oh, Neat. Right. Okay.
Yeah.
That's right.
So they had like Noise had Celtic Frost, Halloween, Creator.
Yes. Okay.
So it's a pretty cool label really back then. So to get involved with that it sort of put us, in people's eyes, it put us up a level really. And to be, outside of the UK, in a way, made us seem a bit more interesting in a way, signing to a German label, And we did the first. Well, we did the 2 albums. We did History, the first album in Hanover, and then we went to Berlin. This was before the wall came down. And spent 3 months in Berlin doing the second record. So that was it was a good experience really for all that time ago.
What's your first show like for Sabbat? Are you guys thrash, or is it like still kind of like new wave of British heavy metal, or are you?
No, we were thrash.
Transition? Is there a transition? Yeah, like there wasn't a transition period.
No, not really. Obviously, like any band, you develop the image as it goes along, and it becomes tighter as a unit. And it takes, I'd say, at least 10 shows before you start gelling properly in any sort of form, doesn't it?
Totally.
But we were just kids. I mean, we did a few sort of support gigs for local bands, played a few pubs, and we always tried to put on a bit of a show with, homemade pyrotechnics and a bit of a stage set that was made, some different, like every band does. You imagine the whole thing to be bigger than it actually is, and you're playing arenas when it's really, a pub.
Right, 15 of your homies in a pub.
Yeah, exactly. But it's such a great experience back then, and I think playing with other musicians, especially when you're that young, it makes your playing come on leaps and bounds rather than just sitting at home and trying to shred.
Oh, yeah.
Jamming with other people. If ever I get kids asking me what they should be doing, it's just get together with other people, because it's straight away you're pushing yourself, aren't you? You're playing outside your limits. So
totally. I mean, I think even just playing a show in a pub makes you better than just sitting in your jam room,
Well, totally. I mean, Ian said this to me, that you make one mistake live and you don't make that mistake again, do you? But if you make that mistake in the rehearsal room, you'll do it 2 or 3 times at least.
Yeah, who cares? Yeah.
Someone watches you make that mistake. Yeah. You don't do it again.
Embarrassment will make you better.
Yeah. So will YouTube.
Oh my God. Yeah. YouTube for sure. Yeah. I know now kids have that to like, let's go watch the YouTube clip. Oh my God. Like you think you're killing it. You think you're killing it so hard. You're like, ooh, oh yeah, I got to work on that.
Yeah.
But it does make you better. That's awesome that you guys went into that like right away. What was from the formation till the time you're playing shows? How long is this period of time? Pretty quick. Pretty early, right?
Yeah. I'm just thinking. I got together with them just before I was 16, because Martin and Fraser had a band called Hydra, and they were looking for another guitarist. And then I came along. We changed the band name, and so it all altered quite quickly. So it was probably sort of 2 years before we were doing what I consider to be proper gigs. Okay. We probably did our first gig with any.
Are you rehearsing at your parents' house?
No, we had we rehearsed where the studio was.
Oh, okay.
Where you came to, that used to be a ballroom, that building.
Oh, okay.
So we had access to like it was fucking freezing in there, like minus 15 degrees in winter. No, a big old ballroom, no heating. But we could make a racket in there, and we did. So it'd be echoing round, and we couldn't really hear what was going on, but it was it was good fun. So
yeah,
and we had it set up like a stage, so we kind of knew where to be. In fact, Borovoy and Don Kay came to see us rehearsing there.
No shit. Really?
Yeah.
Like before the records went out?
Yeah, because Don featured us in Death Fine. I don't know if you remember that was in Kerrang. He had he had a little section in Kerrang!
Or like a death metal. Yeah, right.
Yeah, it was only like half a page, black and white, and he featured us in that, and he wrote to me and said, "I'm coming over to UK." I think he was hanging out maybe with Onslaught as well and a few other bands. He was going around and meeting people. I think this was before we were actually signed, and Borovoy was with him as well. Who, for those of you who don't know, he's the guy that runs Blabbermouth.
Yes,
but Borovoy is an old friend of both of us.
But was also doing a zine back then, and did some record companies.
I didn't know he was doing that.
He was just some dick back then, hanging out with Don K.
Yeah, nothing's changed much, But it was So I met Don and Borry way back then, which would have been like 86. And they came to see us rehearse, and we were in that same ballroom back then. So it was good. It was good times. It was a lot of fun.
Did you guys go out in the town like after? Did you guys like go to the pub?
No, not really. No, they were. I think that they were either going back to London or something. They got a base somewhere. They were sort of going to different places each day. But yeah, it was that whole sort of tape trading fanzine thing, and everyone being connected back then,
Totally. I mean, you think about how much work it was. I mean, it was a lot of work. Like, if you wanted
it used to take me all day. Yeah, I mean, I did all the fan mail and everything. I used to do the band newsletter, do all the mailing out, do all the business side of it for the band. And it would take me a whole day. When the album came out, we would get 30 or 40 letters a day that I was replying to each individual letter.
Wow.
It wasn't like there was a web page where you just keep everyone updated.
Right.
We were doing flyers, and I used to do this thing where, send an international reply coupon or a stamped addressed envelope, and you'll receive the next newsletter in 6 weeks' time, And I'd sit there on this ancient old computer that my dad had, putting this newsletter together, and even printing black and white pictures. I had a dark room that I go and develop my own pictures and do all the 8x10 pictures for the band. So I did everything, really.
Wow. And you think about that too, like how much time you probably spent. I would spend hours at Kinko's, the copying place.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, same thing. Yeah. Yeah, and I remember when my dad, my father, his factory got a photocopier. It was mine. I mean, the amount of extra ink I had to get for that thing, but it was literally just, I can print red on it now. Look, and do the newsletter in green. It's brilliant. Yeah, so it opened all the new doors for it. Yeah.
That's awesome. And on top of that, you would be doing the tape trading and kind of the, getting the networking that you needed to do back then, like in order to get signed, in order to get people to hear your thing, you wanted your tape to get into the tape traders' hands, because you knew there was a couple of guys, once it got to them, it would go everywhere.
And it was it was the only way to do it back then. It was the only way that all the thrash bands back then were doing it. And if I remember, Sean Glass as well. He springs to mind because remember Syndrome. They had the proper printed color covers, didn't they?
I know. They had money. We were like, fuck these dudes. They got money. That's like, this shit's way too fancy.
If you had chrome cassettes and color covers, you were the shit, weren't you?
Totally. It's like, what?
Yeah.
They're unsigned? How do they have this?
Yeah.
I remember meeting Glassell. Glassell came out to the Stone to see a Violence show, and he just showed up. He just showed up in San Francisco, and then he just kind of dude, what's up? How he is. He's very, very extroverted and can talk to anybody. And he just came up and started talking to us yo, I'm from Chicago. I'm fucking dying to see this show. Which is kind of amazing. What I think is that how Don K is writing to you. He's probably not much older than you at this point, and he's going to go fly to England and just go write a letter to a band. This is before email. This is before he's going to write a snail mail letter to a guy and then go, hey, can I come and watch your band?
I know. I mean, just think about this as well. It's like when bands were touring back then. I mean, it was hard enough for us to organize any sort of shows in Europe or anything. We didn't have proper management or anything. So just to get out to Europe, we never came out to the US. I came out to the US when I was 20 to do press, but just trying to organize a tour. And if you lose someone on tour, how did you get hold of them? Back then it was, no mobile phones, no internet. I remember trying to buy a Jackson guitar via telex. It wasn't fax, by telex.
I don't even know what a telex is.
It's like people used to have them in the office, and it used to be like a typewriter that used to you send messages via this type. It used to come up. It used to type on their machine, so you'd send messages like a sort of a telex message, they used to call it. So it was before a fax machine. Yeah,
crazy. Yeah,
so trying to organize stuff.
I mean, I remember Debbie Abona was Violence's manager, and we would spend an hour and a half sometime at a payphone with her just pumping quarters into advance for the promoters, and it's just like, hey, so they don't need no beer. No, we need some beer. Stop saying that. Ask them for beer. She's like, you're not old enough to drink beer, Rob. I'm like, fuck. But I wasn't old enough to be drinking. I wasn't even old enough to be in some of these bars sometimes. Like, I'd have to wait outside. I'd have to wait in the van, and then I'd go in and play the show, and then have to wait back in the van.
I had to wait till I was 18 to sign the record deal.
That's crazy.
So we had to wait. I think we signed it at Dingwall's in London.
They got the interest in you though while you were before you were 18.
Yeah, we got awesome. The deal. They'd offered us the deal, but we had to wait until I was 18 to sign the deal. And then sort of three months later, we were in Hanover recording by that time. So yeah,
that's pretty awesome though. I mean, that must have been pretty exciting to get signed to Noise. That was a cool fucking label. I mean,
we signed the worst deal on the face of the planet and didn't make any money doing it. But I don't look at things like that now and hold any spite or grudge at all. I'm just it's a learning curve, isn't it? And it's part of life when you look at it. Those first album deal type things. So it certainly put me on. When I look at it now, it gave me experience and put me on track for what I'm doing now, really. So it's part of life, wasn't it?
How much did you get to record the first album?
Well,
I can't think of any of my budgets for my first 3 albums.
I think it cost $12,000 the first album. Off the top,
that's a lot of money for back then.
All right. Yeah, I mean, we spent. Must have been 4 weeks at least in Germany, and we had a week's worth of pre-production in London. So I think, cool. I think it was 12,000, and we sold about 50,000 of that first album.
Holy shit! Really? Wow.
Yeah, and the second one.
Good numbers.
Yeah,
that's good numbers.
I mean, it was back then. Obviously, it was better sales for everyone back then, but it was respectable for a first album back then.
Absolutely.
So yeah.
Hell yeah, man. Was that your first time in Germany when you went to Hanover?
Yeah.
So that was like new culture, kind of new. Were you able to drink? Were you old enough to drink in the UK? Because you would have been old enough to drink in Germany.
Yeah. What is it? I don't even know what the drinking age is. I think it was 16.
It's like 13 or something.
I was drinking at 15. No, it was 18, right. Wasn't it? But I was drinking. I was drinking at 15 in pubs in the UK. Just every weekend I was out. So
right.
Yeah, I didn't really think about it. And by the time I got to Germany, it was all hands on deck. Yeah.
Hanover, you're recording your first record. Was it was it memorable? Was it great? Was it bad? Was it what do you remember from it?
It was great. I mean, it was really what. We did the Radio 1 session before that, which was the first, professional studio we'd been in. That they got. Have you been to Maida Vale Studios in London? Yeah. So
totally.
you know what it's like. I mean, I think it used to be an old roller skating rink or something, but they've got about 12 SSL studios in there.
So that was killer equipment.
Yeah, it's it's the BBC, so it's what you'd expect. No, that was the first proper studio we'd actually been in and done a proper session in. So and it was only sort of in for a day, and then they mixed it, and that, so it was such a fleeting sort of visit to the studio. So doing the first album was the first proper experience of spending a decent amount of time in a studio, and just hearing it come together and sort of the drums go down properly. And we did it live. So we did one rhythm guitar, bass and drums all together. Then in the evening, I'd put a second guitar down, and then Martin would do the vocals. Gotcha. And just hearing the second guitar go down and it being, properly tight, and hearing this sort of wall of metal coming back at you at a loud volume, I was oh wow, we actually sound semi-professional. It was great. And that was the first time that I really started focusing on sounds and being in the studio, and just the vibe really of being creative in the studio and what you could get my head around, what you could properly do. So I'd always kind of enjoyed the studio more than doing the live side of things in a way. It was just that creative element and putting the big picture together. I always say it like that, because you're the guy, as a producer now, I'm the guy that's steering the ship and making the sounds work together properly. And that was my introduction to it. And it's what I really, really found that I enjoyed from being in the band. That was the main thing for me.
Who are you, what guitar heroes are you listening to at this point? Like, who's a big influence on you in your guitar, in your style? Well,
I mean, I was always a massive Accept fan. So to be sort of doing Accept now, that was great. Randy Rhoads.
Wolf Hoffman was the baddest motherfucker.
Yeah,
on Earth.
That's why I got a white Flying V back then, was because of Wolf. Right. I was just I want to be Wolf Hoffman.
And everybody wanted to be Wolf Hoffman.
Yeah, well, everyone had that Kerrang cover, didn't they?
Yes, yeah. That fucking amazing Kerrang cover. We were just like, holy shit.
Yeah,
Yeah. And then the two burning V's, at least in America, it was the two burning V's, in Germany, we had a different cover. The burning V's was too much for America at that time. We had a different cover.
Yeah, well, yes. They had the live cover, didn't they, for Restless and Wild?
Yes.
And it was, the two burning V's,
yeah, shout out to Wolf Hoffman, though. He's fucking badass.
Yeah, Wolf's great.
Killer, great player, cool style.
Yeah. So
I don't know if they get enough credit for what they did to Thrash,
Yeah, I mean, they definitely, for me anyway, stuff like Fast as a Shark, it was sort of it was the heavier end of things. They were like, I mean, again, with Priest as well, Priest with like Free Will Burning and some of the heavier stuff they were doing, Exciter, they were sort of pushing the limits of it, weren't they, for where it was going back then. But all the back, you can totally see where Slayer came from, where their whole, they were totally like Priest on steroids,
Yes. So I mean, the song "Ripper" is like 4 Slayer songs, right there.
Well, it's right. It's where Rain and Blood came from.
They got so much from that one song. They were like, "This is the best song ever."
Yeah. So I mean, I was. I mean, Randy Rhoads as well. He was untouchable. Still is, I think. And the Priest guys, Maiden, obviously, Dave and Adrian were big influences back then. So yeah, really that kind of thing.
Were you learning the Maiden songs though? Like, did you sit down and learn them?
A few of them.
Did you guys cover songs by other bands?
No, the band didn't. No. But okay. I was when I was learning to play, I'd learn sort of AC/DC and Maiden, and Twisted Sister. Anyone could learn a Twisted Sister song. So nice. It's 3 chords and you got it. But it was great because you could play all the way through a song. So it's Sabbath. All the usual stuff for learning on, because you got your basics, hadn't you? So
yeah. But what about when Thrash came along? Were there any of those young guitar players that you were vibing on, like Gary or Alex? Or
yeah, I mean Gary. Obviously, Gary's great. I mean Alex is great. All the I mean, Hetfield as well. I mean, for me, James as a rhythm player is so. There's no one that can really touch him on the rhythms. And those early albums, especially, Master of Puppets and some of the stuff on Justice as well, is just so tight.
Fuck yeah!
So, and it's so difficult as well, especially if you're singing. God knows how he does that. But the Megadeth stuff as well.
All down picking.
Of
down
course.
picking. Unrelenting down picking.
Yeah. Yeah. So that was my thing, really. And I was always sort of almost more into the rhythm side of things than anything else. I really liked, when Thrash came along, that whole technique, the down picking technique and riffing. And like I said, the Merciful Fate guys as well, Michael and Hank,
Yeah.
Great. Just the whole twin guitar thing. Yeah.
What's the first tour you guys do for Sabbat? Are you
did
supporting somebody?
Yeah, we did a tour called the Deadly Speed Convoy. In fact, no, we toured with Udo.
What's it called?
I'll come to that in a minute. We toured with Udo. Udo had left Accept. He'd left Accept, and he was doing the, I think it was the Animal House tour, which was his first album. And we did two shows with him, and then we got kicked off the tour by Wolf's wife, Gabby. For being too heavy, and what really
whose
happened?
Wife?
Wolf's wife.
Wolf was in Udo?
No, Wolf's wife, Gabby, who manages Accept, was managing Accept back in the day as well. And when Udo left, she was managing Udo to start off with.
Oh shit! Okay, crazy.
So, So we got this tour last minute. I basically think they couldn't find a support band, and the slot came up through our agent. So we scuttled off to Germany, did 2 shows, and then after 2 shows, we were told we weren't on the tour anymore. It cost us a lot of money. God. So we were stuck in Dusseldorf.
Those
and this band
bastards.
I know, and this band called Vamp.
That is fucking lame.
It is. This band called Vamp, who was signed to Atlantic, took over, and I'm sure Atlantic had basically offered money to get them on the tour. So we got sidelined.
They bought on.
Yeah, so that was our first experience.
But the excuse was you're too heavy.
Yeah. And then we did this Deadly Speed Convoy, which was us, Risk, who were a band, I don't know where they were from. They might have been from Hanover as well. And a band called Rage. They were on Noise as well. But it was all with
a power metal band, right?
Yeah. A guy called Boogie Kopek, who used to run Drakkar Promotions, who used to manage Creator and those 2 bands as well. He basically put the tour together. And we got on that. We did 6 weeks around Europe and Scandinavia as well. So that was it was good. Okay. It wasn't great attendances, but at least we were on a bus, getting out there playing. It's those sort of 3-band packages that used to go around Europe. It's that kind of thing, or the usual.
Are you sharing a bus with all 3 bands?
Oh yeah. It was pretty nice. And back then it was before. Before the Metallica accident, so there was no real safety on the bus. You'd wake up with your face next to the window, frozen on the window. No wood there, just glass.
Right. As they all used to have,
Yeah, no TV or anything on the bus. It was, you'd have the odd sticky sock down the aisle,
Right.
No heat. No.
Yeah.
So it was pretty rough. There'd be there must have been at least 15 of us on this one bus, making it happen. So,
is this the sex, drugs, and rock and roll Andy Sneap era right here?
Not really. No, I was a bit late to the game with it. I was quite shy back then when I was 18. So I was just sort of enjoying doing the playing and. Having the odd drink and what have you, but it was really just about being in the band and the whole experience, really.
Yeah. Right on.
Yeah.
Right on. That's crazy. That's crazy to me that at 18, you're like, because I went nuts. I went
nuts a little bit later.
Well, we'll get to that.
All right.
We'll get to that, Andy Sneap. So you're going to do the second record comes around.
Yeah.
you know, and this is like, now you got some sales under your belt. You got some confidence. You've toured. You've kind of, you know, seen what live songs work and what live songs don't. Like, do you go into your second album with a different mindset?
A little bit. I mean, you know what it's like for a band when the second album comes along, because all of a sudden there's something to live up to, and you haven't got this 3 years of songwriting to pull all the songs from. You've got to write an album within sort of 2 or 3 months,
Right.
And get it together. So I ended up, by this time I got a little Porta One recording studio and a few mics that I used to set up at the rehearsal room. And we just jam out ideas all the time. So I was constantly sort of piecing riffs together, and the songs were getting more and more complex because I was getting kind of bored just writing, you know, 3-4 minute songs. I was trying to push myself as a player and try and get a bit more of that, the more complicated vibe and the more progressive vibe into the songs, really, because I felt that was a bit of a character of the band. You know, I know I keep going back to Merciful Fate, but I like that about them, the way the songs twisted and turned everywhere. And
fuck yeah.
Awesome. I was just so into sort of two riffs that really shouldn't work together, sort of making them work, you know. These riffs will work together somehow.
They were the transition kings. Like, they would throw the most unexpected, like, whoa, what the hell? Oh, okay, that's cool.
Yeah, and it really shouldn't work, should it? Did that. Yeah. So I was gluing all these riffs together, and then Martin would be going away, and I don't know how he did it, but he'd be making the Dreamweaver album is lyrically, there's so many lyrics on that record. It's just he's singing very much on the downbeat a lot of the time, sort of following the riffs, but it was a job and a half to try and make everything fit together. But by that stage, we were still getting on at that point, so we were communicating about how the songs were coming together, and it wasn't too bad. We had one or two sort of rough moments when we were trying to write, but I think every band does when they're growing and people are pushing. You know, that's part of being in a band, isn't it? So the album, I think production wise, it could be better. That second record, it's very sort of toppy and thin sounding, but I think songwriting wise, we really pulled something out of the bag on that. I think there's some really good stuff on there for that style of stuff. I mean, if I was writing songs now, I wouldn't go. It's bizarre to me now when I listen back what we were doing. But we'd also got another guitarist in the band by this point, Simon. He'd come along because we wanted to fatten the sound up and be able to do harmonies and stuff live. So we'd gone to a 5-piece. So the vibe, it was good. And we were pretty confident in what we were doing, and we'd all improved sort of quite dramatically as players by this point because we'd had a lot of experience and we've been touring and, you know, rehearsing a lot. So it was sounding really solid.
You guys had a cool, I mean, I watched some live clips too. And like, you guys even had like you had a whole image going. Like, you looked amazing. You know, you looked like your fucking hair was ridiculous. Like, Jesus Christ. I know.
The head
it was so fucking long.
I had the longest hair in I got Warrell Dane beat back then. I mean, I could literally, I could thread it through my belt straps on my jeans. I couldn't sit on the toilet properly. You know, if I got in the car, it was I got this anaconda of hair that was trying to strangle me. You know, so it was. It was
seriously, and it was enviable hair for sure.
It was too much. When I look back now, I look like Cousin It. You know, my body is totally out of proportion, all this hair. But, you know, at least I made the best of it while I had it. You know,
right? Yeah, right. You did. You owned it. But you guys, like, I was looking at your singer had like the studded gloves and the fucking like. There was a look. You came out with fire, and you know, you had like a trip going.
Yeah, I mean, that was really down to Martin, the singer, because he was into all the whole pagan imagery and the lyrics, and that I was really concentrating on writing the riffs and the music, really, and a bit more the business side of things. So I was focused on that, and Martin was into the whole image and I can't take any credit for that. That wasn't me at all, really. But I did appreciate that it was a good thing for the band to have, to make it more uniform, because there were so many bands around at the time that were just trying to be the next Metallica in a way. I mean, Metallica kind of had their uniform because they gone on to this just jeans and T-shirts and sort of street level type thing, which was their image. But all these other bands were trying to hop onto that, and you could see it. You could see where influences were coming from, and we were really just doing our own thing. We were musically, I don't think it wasn't really going much outside the boundaries of thrash, but I think the image helped separate us, you know.
Yeah. I mean, it was a little more
European almost.
European. Yeah, maybe. Yeah. I couldn't figure what the word I was looking for, but yeah, I could see that. I could see that. What do you do? What touring are you doing for that record?
We did actually. We did quite. We did a UK run first, which went pretty well. Then we did another UK run. While we were booking the UK shows for the second run, we got offered the Manowar tour in Europe, which was a big deal. I think it was the Kings of Metal tour. So it was actually it was a big tour, huge. Actually. Yeah, we never got into Manowar, but
I know that would have been a huge tour for the time.
I liked like Hail to England and the first couple of records back then. But they were massive. I mean, I don't know how big they're still big in Europe now. But we were playing to like 5,000-6,000 out in Spain and Germany, and we had 6 weeks of this. And then we joined the Christmas metal meetings, which had Saxon on the bill.
How were the Manowar guys? How are they?
We didn't mix with them that much. The Eric, the singer, was pretty chatty at times, and they had Dave Shankle in the band at the time. It was pretty cool. He'd sort of mix with us and have a chat. Joey and it was Scott Columbus on drums, I think, at the time. We didn't really mix with them. We didn't. It's a bit of a little bit of a rough tour in the fact that I think we got 4 sound checks on the whole tour.
Right.
But that's part of being a sport band in a way. I mean, you can't take it for granted. So it was definitely a good tour for us to do. And we, like I say, it joined up with the Christmas metal meetings later on, which had Saxon on the bill and Lizzie Borden and who was the other band? There was another band. Fates Warning.
Manowar, Saxon, Fates Warning, Sabbat.
Yeah, and Lizzie Borden. Yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
Am I saying it right? Is it Sabbat or Sabbat?
I always used to say Sabbat, so people didn't go on do the Sabbath thing. That was always
right. Okay.
Okay. Oh God, here we go.
Sabbat.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. So yeah, that was, I think that was 5 or 6 dates in Germany, and that was actually the first time I'd met Biff as well. So that was kind of cool. That was 88 or 89, tail end of 89.
He's the best.
Biff's great. Yeah, he's a funny fucker. Yeah. So yeah, it's good. It's good. I mean, it was a good way to end the year. But it fell apart. We went out and did this festival out in Berlin after that the next year, which was one of the first metal festivals to happen after the wall had come down. That was with Creator, Coroner, and Tankard. And we had a big fallout on the way home about songwriting. And that was it then.
Oh, the band did.
Yeah.
Oh, geez.
So that was it. It was over. And we did another album with a different lineup, which didn't work out. And then I was basically
that must have been a pretty big row over just songwriting.
Yeah, it was. I mean, to be honest, the vibe in the band after the tour, after the sort of 6 weeks on the road, what had happened? We'd had management that we'd parted ways with before the UK and the UK tour and the Manowar tour, and the Manowar tour was really our only way of making money back to cover the debts that we'd run up with that management. So we did 7 weeks worth of touring, and we didn't come out of that with any money. All the money had to go to pay these debts off. So there's a lot of, you know what it's like. There's a lot of grumbling in bands when, it's ripping us off. And it's not.
I just did all this work and I didn't make any money.
Yeah, you know the deal. And it's, you've got to pay the debts off at the end of the day. And I was the one who'd been given that job to sort out. So I was having to sort all the money side of things out. And I did get us out the hole. But part of the contract we had to do the third album to pay the guys that left the band. We had to do the third album to pay their debts off as well.
Oh, so Jesus Christ!
Yeah, it was this massive hole that had been left. But I cleared all the debts at the end of the day. So,
good for you. That's fucking impressive, man. That's really impressive. Back then especially.
Yeah.
People don't understand too, when you're paying back a record company debt, it's like you've got this rate that you're paying it back at, which is like, pennies on the dollar of what you borrowed. So it takes a long fucking time.
Yeah. I mean, I'm still in debt to the old label. But the other debts that were incurred, we paid off, sort of the stuff outside of all that. But right. A record company advance is probably the worst bank loan you'll ever get in your life, isn't it?
Yeah.
When you think about it.
Yeah. No.
Yeah. If you can license your record, it's by far the best way of doing it, isn't it?
Yes. Speak the truth, Andy. Speak the truth. tell the youth what they need to learn.
Yeah.
What happens? So, do you tour behind that last record with the new lineup, or does
we did 2 shows, and it was so obvious that it wasn't working. And it was a disaster, if I'm perfectly honest. So I was just like, no, I'm out of here. I need to do something different now. So that was it. I tried doing a few other band things. It wasn't happening. By this time, the whole thrash thing was falling apart. I could see all the bands the bands that are our size in America were falling apart. And I was thinking, if the Americans can't keep it going, because it always seemed like the American bands had the edge on being professional. They had a bit more financial backing. They could tour more because obviously America's a bigger place. So it was easier for American bands to do touring rather than, being stuck in England. Even getting out to Europe, like I say, was difficult. So seeing the American bands falling apart, and then we were falling apart, the whole scene was changing by this time, sort of 90, 91. The whole grunge thing was beginning to creep in, and it was like
thrash was dying, and
you could feel it. You could see all the bands falling apart. So I was like, right, well, I better think about how I'm going to eat here. How I'm going to make some money. So I moved to Nottingham, got a job in a guitar store, worked selling guitars for a couple of years, and basically grew up a little bit. Rented a house, and started living a bit more normal for a couple of years. It was still cool because I was still sort of involved in the local music scene. I was recording my own music at the studio, and I was working in this store selling guitars. So,
was it guitar?
No, it was. It used to be called Carlsborough. And it was a sort of a chain locally around here. Had sort of 4 or 5 stores. But it was good. It was good people there, and I had a good laugh doing it. And I was still, messing around with the latest gear when it was coming in. When new amps had come in, I could try them out. And I was at that point where I was just sort of growing up a bit. So I'd be living in Nottingham.
You're probably you're like 20 at this point.
Yeah, 21. Yeah, 20, 21. Yeah,
it's crazy.
Yeah. So I was doing that.
It's crazy that you accomplished all that from 18 to 21. It's fucking crazy. 3 records
So I was doing that, and I was also recording bands at weekends at what was the rehearsal room. So I was doing like little EPs for bands and singles for sort of local hardcore bands, and that's how I kind of got into the recording side of things. It was making a bit of extra cash, in my back pocket at weekends. Like the Iron Monkey thing, that you heard originally. That was on ADAT, 8 tracks on ADAT. And
that was fucking brutal. Oh my God, it was so fucking heavy. I loved that fucking thing that you recorded for them. I was like, great, Jesus, this is fucking savage.
Yeah. So that's kind of how I got into the recording side of things. It was just trying to make ends meet and still trying to be creative in music and find a career within the music business. Because I didn't want to. I didn't know what else to do, to be honest. I'd been that involved in the music business from an early age. I'd left school with no qualifications. I didn't get anything. I literally walked out when I was 15 and I'm going to play guitar. And I did. And then by the time I was 21, I was selling guitars and recording bands. So, that was the next sort of step, really.
No backup plan.
No plan B.
I love that. I love that.
You have to make plan A work, don't you? Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. You got to you never plan B. You know, like you got to just, that's part of what this show is about. No fucking regrets. Like, why did you choose the path? There's no safety net. There's no anything. Like, just, I got to make this fucking work.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think when you look back now, and you see friends that were in bands back then, and you can pick the ones who were in the band who were the ones doing all the work because they're still in the industry somewhere, aren't they? There's always one or two of them. They've either got into media or, they've gone into like video production or something with it. They've applied themselves in that same creative direction in a way. And again, they probably didn't have a backup plan either. They just had to find their way, as you do.
Yeah. I mean, that's a pretty big, I'm thinking like time frame though. Like, you're out of your band in 91. We meet in 96.
Yeah.
Did we ever meet before that? Like, did we ever meet anywhere?
No, I knew, obviously I knew of Violence when you were going. I remember sitting on the plane back from America when I came out to America in 1989. I'd spent my 20th birthday in New York. So yeah, I came out to California after that, do press out there.
Shit.
I remember flying home.
You must have been stoked. That's pretty awesome. Like, just to do press. You're not even playing there. You're just doing press. That's crazy.
Yeah, a week in America is quite an eye opener. But I came back, and I remember having my Sony Walkman, and I had the first Forbidden album and the Eternal Violence. Did John Cuniberti had done that one, hadn't he?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. So John had done both albums, and I remember listening to them with I had some Sennheiser headphones and listening to like the reverbs he was using, the snare sound on that first Forbidden album as well. I used to love that.
He was good, man.
Yeah, John, he still is. Yeah, yeah.
The guitars are fucking raging.
Searing, aren't
on
they?
those records. Like, they're fucking, yeah.
Yeah. And John did the Zentrix albums as well, actually. Who were a UK band that were on Roadrunner back then. And he always did a good job. I mean, he did the Satriani albums as well, didn't he?
Yeah, right. So, remember, I totally
down at Hyde Street.
Different thing.
Yeah. So yeah, so I knew of you guys. I knew of Violence and what you were doing.
I mean, Machine Head was Machine Head just off your radar at that point?
Well, Machine
Head was pretty big in the UK. By the time we were doing our second record. I meet Andy when we're doing Before Things Change.
Yeah, well, I knew of you when you did the first album, and I hadn't met Colin at that point. I met him shortly after. Okay. Because I started working with Colin. Well, it would have been the start of '96, maybe the tail end of '95. Because at this point, I'd got a job at a 24-track studio in Nottingham. I was like the in-house metal guy there, doing the engineering, and it was a bigger, it was running an Atari tape machine, and it had an AMEC Mozart desk in there. So I'd sort of moved up to that sort of stage by this point. And I've been doing quite a lot of live work. I'd been the live engineer at Rock City in Nottingham for a couple of years, sort of doing all the bands. Which must have been
fun as fuck, because Nottingham Rock City is like fucking...
Yeah, it was
fucking wild there. So it could be fucking wild. Tell us about this time, Andy. Tell us about this messy time. Andy.
No.
This is the slutty sex, drugs, and rock and roll Andy section. No, not yet. I don't think so. I think that came later. I still think this came later.
Yeah, it was a good time. We all had a good time.
Yeah.
But I was doing all the bands that used to come through.
Run by, first of all, Nottingham Rock City, to anybody who doesn't know, is run by Hell's Angels. So fucking, that gives you that it's going to be wild the entire time you're there. This is probably when Andy, the other Andy, the promoter,
Andy Coppin, I mean, I know Andy from back. I know Andy from back then.
This is when he's running Rock City, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and there wasn't even the downstairs bit then. It was the second bar. There was the small room, but the other bit was all concrete underneath. And the Hells Angels had a room out the back where you could get anything you wanted, really. So yeah, it was a good place to work, and it was that I was doing all the small bands that came through in sort of the second room. So I was the in-house guy, just running the front of house for all those bands. Then I went on tour. My old front of house guy for Sabbat was a guy called Roger Patterson, who had kept an eye on what I was doing, and he was doing the sound for Rage Against the Machine. So he got offered a band called Mother Tongue from LA on the Cults European tour in '94, and he couldn't do it. So he asked me to go out and do the front of house on the tour. So that was sort of, so I did the front of house on that tour for Mother Tongue. And I was working with Greg Price, who's now Ozzy's engineer. So that was kind of a step up. I was doing a bigger tour at the end of '94. And then I got this gig working at the recording studio in Nottingham, which, like I say, was a bigger studio. So I was the in-house metal guy there doing the engineering. And Pete, who was the studio booker, used to be in a band called Lawnmower Death, still is. I don't know if you remember them. Do you remember Lawnmower Death?
Lawnmower Death? Lawnmower Death, yes. Yeah. I remember Lawnmower Death, totally.
Yeah, they were signed to Earache, and I was friends with them. So Pete knew Colin.
Crossover.
Yeah, well, it's just noisy, aggro.
Right.
And Pete got Colin to come through the studio with a couple of projects. One of them was Dearly Beheaded for Music for Nations. Another was an unsigned band called Zonefly. But we worked well together. We got on really well, me and Colin. And then obviously when you were doing the More Things Change, which was the end of '96, you're onto your third mix. Do you remember?
Yeah. Oh, totally. No, I remember meeting you. Colin had said, because we were going to do something with the amps and we were going to decide. This is before. So just let's paint the picture here, because we're throwing out names that maybe people don't know. So Colin is Colin Richardson. Colin Richardson produced Burn My Eyes, produced most of the Machine Head records have been mixed and produced.
Done the Carcass albums as well, Napalm Death, hadn't it, before this?
He had done Discharge. I was crazy. He had done the Fear Factory record. I was crazy about. I was just like, this dude's fucking guitars, like the guitars, man. Yeah. Just fucking crushing. And so we got him. We worked. I mean, it was great for Burn My Eyes, and then we had some. We recorded in San Francisco at, I forget what the name of the place is, but it was where Metallica had just like redone the room and
was it the Plant?
The Plant, that's it, the Plant.
Yeah.
And it just didn't. I don't know what it is. Like there's a thing about and this is kind of my first introduction to this like phenomenon. But there's a thing with Bay Area studios in particular, but many studios where like you're listening to something in the room and it sounds fucking raging, and then you leave the room and it sounds terrible. Like we had the same thing happen with Burn My Eyes, where in Fantasy, like the fucking mixes sounded, just spine crushing. And then we'd go like listen in my car and I was like, what the fuck? Like this doesn't sound anything the same. And we had the same thing happen at this Plant place. So we were like, okay, we're going to have to, back then, this is before DIs. So we got to re-record the guitars in order to like get it. So you got to go re-track everything. So we go to Parr Street in Liverpool, because Colin's like, I had a great time there with the whatever record I did there. And we're like, well, who are we going to use?
He did Carcass there, didn't he? Yeah.
That's why he did the I couldn't remember what he did there.
Yeah.
Heartwork? He did Heartwork there?
Yeah. Well, he was in the room upstairs for that, but yeah, we did the Dearly Beheaded mix. Did we do the mix there? I think we did. Yeah, me and him had worked there. Yeah. Okay. But yeah, I met you there because I lent you my Fernandez V, didn't I? No, it wasn't.
It's the V and the. Oh, you didn't lend us the amp?
No, Mark lent you the amp, didn't he? Do you remember Mark Miner?
Mark, yes, that's who it was. That's who it was. That big tall fucker.
Yeah. So I'd lent you a V.
You guys were friends. You guys were friends too.
Yeah. Mark a long time. Yeah.
Gotcha. I thought for some reason I put all the equipment to you, but that's right. You let the V. You lent us the guitar.
Yeah. So yeah, you re-recorded it and remixed it. And I actually didn't think those mixes sounded bad.
You were hanging. I remember you hanging quite a bit. Like I remember you being around quite a bit.
Yeah.
Is that my?
Yeah. No, I think I stayed over one night when I brought all the gear up, and then when I came to pick it up again, I think I hung out a little bit and we got chatting. And then you still weren't happy with it, and so
it wasn't. And Vinny, and Colin. So Vinny is our engineer, who's also the same engineer that we had for Burn My Eyes. And somewhere along the way here in Parr Street, Vinny and Colin are just oil and water. And they're at each other's throats, and Vinny's like fucking like just talking all this shit. And like anytime we get away from fucking like we step away from Colin, he's like in our ear, like, what are the fucking doing? And I'm just like, bro, like, and now I'm just super fucking on edge because I'm, pissed about all this shit. And I'm just like, it was just a bad vibe. Like it was a bad I love Vinny, like I love Vinny and I love Colin, but like it wasn't working between those two, and it did affect the record. Like the record suffered, as a result of it. They couldn't get on the same page. So then I was like, I think you were the first person that I ever met who knew how to use Pro Tools, which is how long ago this was.
I was running Cubase back then.
Oh, Cubase, right. Cubase.
For drum triggers, because no one in the Bay Area seemed to know how to do it. There was, I remember when jumping forward, obviously I got asked to come out and help on the third mix in California. So we did, what was it, 2 weeks in Hyde Street, and then we drove to LA straight after. Do you remember? We finished tracking, right. And then that night we drove down the I-5 all the way down to Larrabee in LA where we mixed it. Stayed at the Hyatt, didn't we, for a month?
Oh my God, the Hyatt, where they were permanently doing construction.
I think it was room
endless construction starting at 6 a.m. We're like, what the fuck is going on?
Yeah, so we weren't getting any sleep, and then we're in like a $1,700 a day studio in Larrabee, weren't we? Yeah, and I was running Cubase. Yeah, I remember that.
That was Cubase. That's crazy. I didn't remember that. I just knew that you were pretty much the only person that we knew how to do drum triggers within the computer.
Yeah,
we'd had to hire some guy. Burn My Eyes. We hired some guy to like manually paste them for 3.5 days or some fucking insanity or some shit.
Yeah. People used to do it. They used to sort of sync their heads up. They used to have the repro and sync head, and then they'd fire it back in backwards through a delay type thing and put it back in time. And it was like, I had to do that on a couple of records where we didn't have a computer in the studio, but we used to have an old Atari ST or a PC. Running Cubase or Notator or something like that, just to get MIDI notes into the computer. And then you'd fire it into the default, the old Akai sampler, and it'd always be just one-shot drum sounds, same snare for everything.
Yes.
Which gave it sort of the sound from back then in a way. You try and blend it in with the original on fills and things like that. But yeah, it's the way we worked it, wasn't it? And the running, I think we ran 48.
We did. What do you remember though from that? Like, I remember being like, at this point I was starting to get frazzled. Like I was like, I remember I felt like I had my wits about me with like the tones, but I was just, my patience was completely gone.
You didn't have your wits about you by then.
No, did I not? I couldn't tell.
No, you'd lost it. I remember I don't know if you remember, there was like that lounge area upstairs. There was that quite sort of arty kitchen. Yes. And then there was the lounge, which was like a red room, and there was like a throne at the end of the room. I remember me and Colin having to take mixers upstairs to play you on your stereo, because you'd take your stereo there.
I had brought my stereo down,
Yeah. And
I couldn't trust anything anymore.
And we were like having to hand these mixers over and like scuttle out the room and hope for the best. And I remember you smashing the room up once because one of the kick drums hadn't triggered.
Oh my God. I had anger. I had anger issues, and I was frazzled. I was just like,
I'm not surprised. It was an expensive album to make that, and it was a good 6 months solid, wasn't it? And,
it was like constantly trying to like, smooth things over with the label to like, hey, like, like, look, I don't know why it doesn't sound good, but just like, we had to push the record back like 2 times. Like it was, it was a lot of stress, outside stress to that.
Yeah. And it was also, you know, the success of Burn My Eyes, there was that hanging over you as well. You know, it's like, we can't let this slip, because, you know, obviously David come into the band, so there'd been a lineup change as well. So it was,
totally.
It was that hanging over you as well. I think if it had been a first album, it wouldn't have been a problem. But I think, just because everything, the stars had aligned so well for the first record, there was the pressure on you, wasn't there? And it was that thing, like I said, you know, you've got 3 years or whatever to write your first album. You've got 3 months to write your second album.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's got to be fucking great, and you got to have, you know, shit that is compelling and that the label can, you know, put out there, and you know, in the end, I look back on that record.
It's a good record.
You know, and then we had to, we retracked the guitars 3 times, mixed it 3 times. It sounds fucking crushing. And I kept on telling myself that over, like, you know what? In fucking 20 years time, no one's going to care. No one's going to remember any of this shit. And no one does. You know, we're going to talk about it and we're going to remind people, but like, no one's going to remember this. Like, all they're going to remember is that, and it's going to sound fucking awesome. So
and were the songs any good? That's what it always comes down to at the end of the day.
Totally.
I mean, you really get caught up in it. It kills me making a record, because at the end of it, if I've been on a project for 2 months recording, then I've mixed it as well, I can't see the wood for the trees, to be honest. I have to walk away, and the deadline is a good thing, because it forces me to sort of go, right, that's it. That is where you're at. That's where your head's at. It's where the band was at. It's a slice of time. That's what an album is. And you can always go back to a record and change it. Whether it makes it better or not, I don't know. You know, people go on about Justice for All, and, you know, some of these older albums that sound a bit thin. But at the end of the day, that was the technology. It's where the producer was at. It's where the band was at. Do you really want to change it? Because that's what an album's about at the end of the day, isn't it?
Yeah, for sure. And they capture, you know, like, in some ways, you know, people rag on Justice all day and night, but like, without that one record, the next step after that is Prong. The next step after that is Pantera. The next, you know what I mean? Like, that's the evolution. People heard those super scoop guitars. People heard those super bright kick drums and went, oh shit, that's where we got to go. And then it evolved to where metal is.
The whole kick drum thing as well.
I mean, it's a shame the bass got lost.
Yeah.
What's that?
Yeah, it is. But the kick drum thing, I remember Anthrax doing the clickier kicks before Metallica. And also,
really?
On
what record?
What album was it? I remember thinking that Anthrax's kicks were really good, because they got a load of top end on them. And obviously they'd done the Garage Days thing before that as well, hadn't they? That it got a slightly sort of toppier kick on it.
Right.
So that whole thing was beginning to creep into the thrash thing a bit. And I mean, Practice What You Preach as well. That's got a really toppy kick on it when you listen to it.
Does it?
No. Yeah. You go and listen to it.
Practice didn't have that, like, I don't see an evolution, a thrash evolution in that record.
But all the bands back then around that time had started adopting this sound. You know, they were taking this extra top end sort of thing on the kit. I always say that drums have got to have. How many albums do you hear now where it's almost the kick and snare sound the same? They've got the same EQ on, haven't they? You can't tell the difference almost. Yeah, it almost sounds like the beat can be backwards. And you always needed a toppy kick and a deep snare, or a deep kick and a cracky snare. You need the different note between the two. And sort of Metallica reversed it almost, didn't they? You know, with that, with the top end of the kick drum. You know, no one else. You know, it was. I thought Anthrax were doing it quite early, but then.
What album? What, State of Euphoria? Like, what?
I don't know which one it
Among
was.
the Living?
It was.
I'm trying to think of, like, Among the Living would have been.
Compared to what bands had, it wasn't to the extreme of Justice. I mean, Justice took it all to the next level, really, with that kind of thing. It is quite. It's almost like they'd mixed it once and then went and did it all again on top of it. Everything was so scooped and toppy, and, you know, the subs and stuff. I
didn't like it at first. I remember hearing it back then.
I still don't like it. No, I don't like. I mean, I like the songs. I think
the guitars are fucking heavy. The guitars are fucking crushing.
But I mean, it's like you say. But then they evolved and made the Black Album. Probably because of that, they felt that, you know, they went in, because of that, it made them think in a different direction. And it's you know, it's all part of that curve, really, that learning curve for them. So
yeah,
you know, can't knock them.
funny. Yeah. No, it was good. I remember you were, I don't know if people know this, but you and I, actually, Colin had to leave and Colin's visa was expiring. And so you and I ended up mixing like
I think
that Hammer.
I think that the
some of the
term
cover
was,
songs.
Colin bailed on us.
Yeah, Colin bailed. Colin bailed.
He made an excuse saying he'd got to start Napalm Death.
Yeah. He just had to start Napalm Death.
Yeah. So he left us to finish the record, basically.
We love Colin.
Colin's great.
Shout out to Colin. He's fucking awesome. That fucking whole record was just fucking insanity, though. It's crazy.
Yeah.
He hung in there till the end, though, man. He hung in.
Yeah. We got the bulk of the album done, and then it was a few of the. We did a few recalls, didn't we? Where it was a couple of things needed doing, and I think was it Bay of Pigs on that record as well?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think I did that one, and there's a couple of other ones that we did.
Monty Connor infamously came down to the studio, and I kicked it out after like 1 day.
It was like a rabbit in the headlights. We got there bang on 10 o'clock. And I remember opening that control room door, and Monty was like, oh! We caught him, and he'd marked the faders with pencil, and he was going, I remember his exact words is, I just wanted to hear it with the guitars a little louder. Yeah.
He wrote me a letter. He wrote me a letter too after that. Like, I wish I had the letter still. God, that would be good shit. Right?
Do you remember there was me, you, and Colin was sharing a room at the Hyatt?
Yes.
And he posted it under the door, didn't he? He came to LA. He slid this letter under the door and left without even saying goodbye. It was like his final farewell. We broke him. Yeah. I mean, we were going through it. Yeah.
Monty Connor. We talk about this. We always talk about this every time we get together. Just like, oh my God, but you know, again, it's all forgotten now because the record sounds fucking awesome.
Yeah. I mean, I walked past the, I think I sent you a picture, didn't I? I was in LA, but when we were out there, and I sent you a picture a year or so ago when I walked up Sunset past where the Hyatt used to be. Well, I don't know what it's called now. I can't remember. But there was like the House of Blues over the road, wasn't there? And we moved to another. We moved over the road after a while, didn't we? We moved to another hotel. But I mean that was mad. Thinking we're at the Riot House, as they used to call it, and we used to walk down past where Tower Records was, didn't we? We used to turn down past the Viper Room, and then down onto Santa Monica down there, wasn't it?
Santa Monica,
yeah, where Larrabee was. So yeah,
what was it? Do you remember the name of our engineer that we had there?
Steve. And he had a weird second name. I say weird, just unpronounceable. But he had a abbreviated second name, wasn't it? Stevie D or something. He used to call himself.
Right. That sounds close.
Yeah. Steve.
Was that your first big record? Was that kind of your big break?
It was. I saw it as a good step up because it was getting to America to work. Is always a difficult thing to do. Because there's so many good engineers already in America, being able to get to America and make the contacts and get out there is so hard. So it was as soon as I knew I was going to be in America, I knew I'd made a step up the ladder really as far as the engineering went. It was good because obviously I met Borry and Monty. I'd met Monty when I was in New York back when I was 20. But obviously meeting those two, Borry was at Century Media at the time. Monty was at Roadrunner. So I was then, for the bands that couldn't afford Colin, I was then the guy to go to, obviously Skin Lab and Stuck Mojo, a few of the other bands, I did some noise bands.
Skin Lab was the next thing you did, right? Was that the next record?
Yeah. So, and then obviously the Exodus record as well. I got involved with Exodus. It was a good contact to make. And it saw me coming back to America constantly after that. I'd spend probably, 4 to 5 months out of the year in America, backwards and forwards. And it was great. All the bands that I work with out there have been great fun. And it's funny being over here, people see you working in America and they hold you in sort of it's a stupid thing, but they hold you in a high regard because they you've worked your way out there and they've seen you, you're sort of seen a little different in a way. So I was making my way up the ladder pretty quickly back then. So it was, and I did the Earth Crisis record that I got some vocals out of you for as well. And forget all that. There's loads of stuff, loads of live stuff I was doing for bands, and noise. I was doing some noise bands as well. Did the Nevermore albums. So there's all those
noise. So you paid noise back.
Yeah, well, it's all right. I was then working for them. I didn't burn the bridge. I didn't fall out with them. So it was good because I was then sort of working with them in a producer format then. So it was good.
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. What was the, after all that time, you did like Skin Lab and that you're producing most of those records, right? Like you're the producer now. Yeah. You're the engineer of the Machine Head record. Was it Testament? Was that the big record that kind of like where you were the producer?
No, I mixed the Gathering.
Okay, gotcha.
Now, if you want to talk messy, that was messy.
I thought you were out here for that though. Did you came out here to mix that? Oh, okay, gotcha.
And we actually mixed that at Soundwaves, which was
God, holy shit!
They're still in the same room there. That room, they had that tiny little control room in there. And they tracked the whole thing in there with Dave Lombardo playing drums as well on the album.
Holy moly!
So again, we were just on ADATs, and we had a Soundcraft Spirit desk. We hired some outboard gearing, some SSL compressors and bits and pieces. But yeah, I mean we just did it there and then. We mixed it back onto the ADATs, so I was punching the mix in and out for different sections. And it's really, really,
What do you mean? What do you mean?
Basic way. Well, you'd mix basically. You get your basic mix for the song. Where everything was pretty much balanced and working. You print it back to 2 tracks on the ADAT because obviously it was all synced up. So you'd have tracks 23 and 24 for the mix, and then you'd set up another part of the mix, and then you'd with the ADATs, you could rehearse the punching points. You could program it. Okay. So you'd basically then punch the mix in for those parts, and basically
why would the mix have to change? Oh, because the mix would have to change from time to time. You couldn't write it. You couldn't write it in the thing or whatever.
You had no automation. No.
Oh, gotcha. So no automation.
Yeah.
Holy shit.
So you could do rides on the fly and record it, and if it wasn't right, you could go back and redo it. But say you wanted like. Just things like tom mutes, for instance. I'd have all the toms on one ADAT. I'd make notes of where the tom hits were, and I'd record them back onto another ADAT and mute them. And if I got it wrong, I could then go back and re-record that part. So I'd slowly build tapes up that had the mutes on, had the triggers on. So I was there was ways of doing it, but it was a long-winded way of doing everything. And you do that with the mix as well. You slowly build the mix up in sections.
Wow. I don't think I've ever heard that. That's fucking crazy.
Yeah, it worked though. For saying, if you didn't have automation, it was a way around it. A way of doing it. And it's a way I did it for a few years when my studio was an ADAT studio. And then obviously when Pro Tools came along, it changed everything really of what you could do and actually being able to see what you were doing. And the automation possibilities. It was great.
I remember hearing all kinds of story of you and Eric doing loads of cocaine during this record.
yeah, we did it. I flew to
I heard all kinds of stories.
I flew to Atlanta the next day to do the Stuck Mojo live album, and I thought my fucking forehead was going to explode on that flight. I was like, oh God, make it stop.
I still can't feel my face. I'm sorry, Rich.
Oh my God. I mean, good times.
Yeah. And it was just you two, right?
Did
you didn't track any of Lombardo? Like Lombardo was tracked separately?
No, I didn't. I actually didn't meet Dave till a long time after that, actually. And I've never really hung out with Dave much, but I've seen him a few times and talked to him about it. But yeah. I mean, they tracked it themselves. And and I was brought in to mix it. So yeah, we just did loads of coke and mixed it.
It's amazing that it turned out as good as it did. It wasn't just the bright.
It's amazing we got it finished. Yeah, I mean, I always say, I mean, it's that Van Halen thing, isn't it? You know, they put the top end back into recording, and I think I know why. Yeah,
that's awesome. That's awesome.
Top end and compression.
Heavy, yeah, that record's fucking heavy, dude. Fucking that was to me the record where I was just like, holy shit, Andy Sneap is. I mean, Skin Lab was fucking great sounding, and not to say anything bad about any of the other things, but that one record, I was just like, wow, like it sounded.
It's funny. I listened to it again probably about 6 months ago because we were remastering it for a re-release, and it didn't really stand up for me. But a lot of people back then, I mean, it's partly because of the way we mastered it and the way we did the mix. I say sort of punching bits in and out. It didn't quite have the clarity, but I think the songs had a really good vibe on it. I think the band almost found where they needed to go on that album. They'd done Low before it, which was a good album, and I think Demonic was before that as well, wasn't it? But I think they really they found sort of that good balance between melodic and heavy on the Gathering, where the songs just really delivered. I thought they were really good songs on the Gathering, and again, I think that people go on about the sound of the album and how they like it, but I think they're liking the songs as well, and I think that's what gives it that impact, you know.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes just a record, you know, like if you took apart everything, nothing really sounds amazing, but all together it somehow just hits like a fucking fist, and that's to me what that was, you know. Like,
yeah. I know exactly what you're saying. Yeah, it sort of fell into place. Yeah.
You when does the Hell reunion? When do you join Hell? When's that happen? Is that somewhere around this time, or is that still later?
No. That's a lot later, actually.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, that was a long story. I mean, it goes right back to when I was young. When I was 12 years old, I started having lessons with a guy called Dave Halliday, who was a local guitar teacher here. I used to see a friend of mine, John, walking around school with a guitar on his arm, and he was in the year above me. And I was like, I've got to learn to play guitar. And I had it was a Starway. I think it was a Ties Coast Starway guitar, like an old 60s guitar, piece of shit, worth about 900 quid now, strangely enough. But John introduced me to Dave, and Dave was like an older brother to me. I mean, he was only sort of late 20s, but I was only 12 at this point. So I, idolized him, looked up to him, and he was in this band called Hell. And we used to go and see them, and they'd put on such a show. It was amazing. Just in local pubs, on about what we did with pyro and things in local pubs. But we took a lot of our influence with Sabbat from them back in the day, because we were all into them. So I had lessons with Dave for probably 5 years. I used to just go around every week and he'd show me songs and, make sure the hand positioning was right. We just sort of work our way through songs. And I used to bunk off school all the time and just go and walk up to his house, and he'd be, playing guitar. Yeah, just skive off school, Yeah. So I was up at his house all the time, just sort of hanging out and playing guitar. So it was something that I really looked up to when I was young. And Hell split up when it would have been 85, 86. They got a deal with Mausoleum Records, who I think had Warlock on the label at the time. It was one of those. It was a Belgium label, but it never happened for them. The label went bankrupt before they managed to do an album. Unfortunately, they did a single, but that was it. And nothing really happened for them. But they had a good following around the sort of the Nottingham, Derby, Midlands area of the UK. And unfortunately, Dave died when I was 17. He committed suicide.
Oh, jeez.
And he left all the songs in his will to me. So I got all the rights to the songs.
Oh, wow.
And he left me all his equipment as well. I've still got his guitar and all all his amps and everything. So I'd always had this hanging over me.
Wow. I mean, that must have been shocking. Like,
Yeah,
fucking
it's
on
terrible.
so many levels. Like,
Yeah, it was a terrible time.
and that's got to be like the first death you've probably ever experienced in your life.
Yeah, it was, and it was a real someone that I really looked up to as well. Really close friends. So
Mentor, yeah.
yeah, so it hung over me for a long time, and it's actually it has affected my life quite a lot when I look back at it. But I'd had this, I'd got all these songs that Dave had written, and the band had never realized the songs. They'd never had the chance to record them. And when someone
was there any explanation about why he gave you the songs? Just that he saw something in you that
I think so. Yeah, I think he he'd seen that I got Sabbat together by this point. He never saw us get signed and sort of have any success. That was all after this. But I think he had some belief in me, I think, and could see how determined I was. I got all these songs, and I'd had them all this time. And when something like this happens, people tend to sort of scatter to the winds a little bit, and all the band members split up and went and did their own things. And I didn't really see any of the other guys from the band for must have been about 10 years. And then Tim, the drummer, turned up on my doorstep one day. I think he was going through a bit of a rough time, and he'd sort of looked back at people he knew from back then, and he sort of came and found me, and we had a bit of a chat, and we kept in touch. And Tony, the bass player, I'd see occasionally around the local scene. And Kev, the other guitar player, none of us knew where he'd gone. He'd sort of disappeared and fallen into normal life and was doing a normal job. I think he was selling road sweepers or something. He's just found a normal job that he was doing okay at. And I forget what I was in America at the time, and I was just on Instant Messenger when that had started up. And this guy pops up on there, and he says, "Oh, my dad says he knows you." And I said, "Oh, yeah, who's your dad then?" He said, "Oh, it's Kev from the band Hell." And none of us knew where he'd gone. And I said, "Oh, you've got a time to get in touch with me. I'll be back home in a couple of weeks." So this was 2011, something like that. And so I got back and met up with Kev, and he'd been following what I'd done. He'd seen his son Tom had got into metal, and he'd been buying like Trivium albums and Killswitch Engage albums, and he'd seen my name on this, and he was saying, "Well, there's only got to be one Andy Sneap, in the metal world. There can't be many people with that name." And realised that I'd sort of gone from being this kid on the front row of these Hell shows and hanging out with Dave, and I'd made a career for myself after Sabbat as a producer. So I got chatting to Kev. I said, you realise that Dave has left me all these songs that you guys used to play. Why don't we, I've got a studio down here now. Why don't we get the guys together and just, every other weekend we'll get together as a group of friends and record these songs just for our own good, just so we can hear how they should have sounded. And that's what we did, because we were all such old friends from, the 80s. We'd get together, have a few glasses of wine and hang out and try and remember how these riffs went. They'd try and remember how to play their instruments because they hadn't played for 20 odd years. Thank God for Pro Tools, And so I kind of coached them.
Thank God for Pro Tools.
Yeah, I kind of coached them into making this album. And we put the whole thing together. We picked like 12 of our favourite songs. And it wasn't just Dave that had written these songs. Kev had co-written them with him. So he had a good idea of how they'd gone. Dave was really the sort of, he had a quirkiness to his songwriting though, which wasn't in with Kev's stuff. There was a bit of a yin and yang sort of combination of songwriting between them. But we couldn't find a singer. And we tried Martin from Sabbat, and that didn't work out because he was such a different style to what Dave used to be. And then we tried Kev's brother, Dave, who, I call him Dave Mark II, but because Dave had been around when the original Dave was around. He'd been to see the shows and knew what it needed, and he could sing that higher sort of Geddy Lee register of what the original vocals were. And he's also a trained actor, so he was good at not imitating, but he took on the theatrical element of the band and sort of ran with it and took it a stage further. So everything sort of fell into place, and we managed to find a singer that could sing the same range and the same style. And that's kind of what happened, really. We pieced this album together, and Nuclear Blast picked it up, and we did 2 albums with Nuclear Blast, and it's a good way of getting back out, doing some bigger gigs again, with a group of friends where we all got on, and it was really it was every time we went away at weekends and did European festivals, it was like a lad's sort of stag night away. You know, we'd go away. As soon as we're at the airport, it was 5 pints in, you know. That was the messy Andy Sneap.
I was going to say, this is the era of Andy Sneap that I kind of remember being like the fucking wild man Andy Sneap. This is like Andy Sneap and Nick Barker are hanging out together, and fucking you guys are calling me on ecstasy, like FaceTiming me on ecstasy, like, dude, what's up? Like, oh my god.
Yeah, it was. It's mad. I mean, I think it's a phase that everyone kind of goes to at some point, but I just let my hair down a bit, really, and
that's awesome.
I don't know. It was a crazy.
You were definitely a wild man at this point. Like, the
funny thing is as well. I mean, I've been sober now for 5 years, stone cold sober, and people that know me from like they can't believe that I was sort of that out of control. But I look back now, and I'm like, how am I still alive? You know, it's some of the things we used to do. I mean, it was insane what we used to do, to be honest.
No, I mean, I got to tell this story because you and Nick Barker call me. You FaceTime me. You're both frying on ecstasy, and you're like, we just came back in from shooting the guns out in the back. It's just like, holy shit. I'm like, sounds like a good time.
It was a great time. Yeah. I mean, me and Nick have got a history. We go back a long way. I mean, Nick used to come and see us play when I was like 17, 18. Yeah, he's great.
Love Nick. He's a fucking maniac.
I've
done ecstasy with Nick, so I know what the Nick raging night is.
Yeah, I mean, no, I'm not going to go into it.
No, go into it. Go into it.
I remember trying to get on Testament's bus at Donington once, and I was 7 pills in. And I couldn't lift my foot up to get on the first step of the bus. And you know what it's like with ecstasy? Your vision goes digital. You know, when you all start stuttering and you can't see.
Right.
I couldn't see. I couldn't move. I was in a right mess. Yeah, and I've just got. And I just used to go. It used to start with a drink, and then, you know, you start with the beer, you'd have a glass of wine, have the bottle of wine, you have another bottle of wine, the Coke order would go in, I've got some pills. And before you knew it was 9 o'clock in the morning. And, you know what it's like 2 days later, and you're just crying, and it's like, you've got the fear. I was like, why have we done this? And then by Saturday again, you're doing it all again, aren't you? So I just got to a point. I got to a point where I've got to calm this down a bit, because I didn't want it to affect my work. I mean, I was having a great time, and I felt old. I felt old before my time, you know. So
I think my favorite story from this era, though, that will go down in legend, and I think it is a testament to what a great person you are, that he actually hired you to mix this record after you did this, was the Max Cavalera story, though. Tell us the story. Tell us the story.
I don't know. I mean, you know, obviously I love Max, but we'd done the Eindhoven metal meeting, and I don't know if I can tell this story. We just got hammered. I mean, Nick was out with us as well. Everyone was just so fried.
And those are, oh my God, those fucking metal being in Holland. Like Holland, for some reason, like you just get extra fucking annihilated because there's this whole other element involved.
I can't tell this story. I'm not
going to
tell it.
All right,
we'll skip over that one. Yeah.
It's a really, oh my God, it's my favorite Andy Sneap story of all time.
I'm still embarrassed about that. I did apologize to Max. Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
And then he hired you, which is amazing.
No, this was after. This was short. That was after. This is after. Yeah, he's not hired me since then.
Oh my God.
Yeah, but Max is great. Yeah.
He's a great guy. You got to tell the story. All right.
No.
So good.
No.
We'll save it for another. We'll save it for the next podcast.
Yeah.
I'll ask Max about it when Max is on the podcast. I'll ask him about the Andy Sneap story.
It's all right for him to tell it. Yeah. But I mean, he was stone cold sober. That's the worst thing. Max was sober, and there's me after a full day on it. You know, Sabbat played early on in the day, and it's Max wants to see you on the bus, and I'm trying to, you know what it's like. You're trying to hold it together, thinking, oh, can anyone tell what I've been up to? Of course they can.
Does anyone tell him on ecstasy and 5 pills?
Yeah. So yeah, every night. Yeah.
Right on. That was a fun era of Andy Sneap, I have to say.
Yeah. But
I raged with you one of those nights. I think I raged at your house one of those nights like that. We stayed up pretty late.
Yeah, we had a few. There was a few times out in San Francisco as well.
Was it with your other girlfriend? Was it your other girlfriend then?
Helen. Was it Helen?
Was it Helen? Yeah.
Or Jackie?
I can't remember.
Yeah.
I can't remember.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. Yeah, it might have been. Yeah, if it had been when you came over when we were doing Through the Ashes, it would have been her. Yeah. So yeah.
Right. Cool.
Yeah.
Somewhere along the line, then somewhere along this line, you're going hard, and then at some point you're like, I gotta pump the brakes.
Yeah.
Was there a big, like, sometimes people have just like, okay, I'm done, like I'm tired of this, or they have like this kind of, oh my God, I'm a fucking mess, I need to chill.
I did have a couple of moments like that where it was, where there'd be the blackouts and you realize that you put your foot in it and not upset people, but because you know what it's like when everyone's outraging, everyone's having a good laugh anyway, aren't they? But it got to a point where I felt it. I felt my health going downhill, to be honest. Chest pains, and I was putting on extra weight, and I just thought I've got to start behaving myself a little bit. So I did. I literally got back from America, and I got a month and a half coming up, and knowing how big a drinkers those guys were, I thought if I'm in the studio after a night out with those guys, and trying to hold, it's always me that's got to be in the studio at 10 o'clock in the morning editing drums and pulling the session together. Right. I can't do it. So I said, I'm going to try and have some time off. I'll try and do this album without any drinking or anything else involved. And I did it, and I just felt great. It was like a light bulb had come on. I just felt refreshed, and I started exercising a bit more.
Did you feel pressure from them, like because they wanted you to drink?
No, not really. They were fine. Yeah. They're cool guys, so they were totally all right with it. And this was, I'll say this was over 5 years ago now, and I just felt so much better in myself and so much more level-headed. And I also think, looking back now, the whole thing, the thing with what I was saying about Dave committing suicide, that started. I've not really mentioned this to many people, but I started getting flashbacks from a lot of stuff that happened back then with the drinking, and it was weird. I think I had sort of the whole health thing was very cathartic for me. Sort of doing his songs and everything. And I think I didn't realize what a impression the whole thing had made on me. So I felt I needed to calm down a little bit because of that as well. It's weird that your mind can do odd things with you at times. And I found it a real struggle with things that had happened back then. So I calmed it down partly because of that as well. So it was partly the health thing. You
were having flashbacks about with what? Flashbacks about just Dave? About your friendship?
I actually found him when he committed suicide. So,
oh my God.
For a 17-year-old kid to go through that.
You went to his house to play guitar?
We had a show that day, so I went round to pick some equipment up and found him. And you know, that had hung over me all these years. And so I start, you know, I don't know if it's like a trauma thing or what, but I started getting flashbacks from it. So yeah, it was just time to change things, really, you know, time to calm things down. And I don't know if I'd sort of been hitting things so hard, partly because of all that, because of everything that had happened back then. You know, it was a sort of a coping mechanism almost. So I think it must have been, looking back, because the way it started affecting me when we did the health thing, and it started really getting to me when, you know, I was drinking and doing drugs, and I could never really picture what had happened, and I'd started getting these memories that I'd not even thought of for 30 years, you know. So it sort of just spoke to me, really, and I decided I'd got to calm things down, and find a different way of living a little bit, you know. So it was in a way it was what I needed to do. So I just, that was it. I knocked it on the head, and I haven't touched the drop since, you know.
Yeah, good for you, man. I mean, that must have been hard. I didn't realize that you found him. That's gotta be.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure that must have fucking scarred your brain somehow. Jesus Christ.
I think I've never really talked about it before, to be honest, but you know, I think it's got something to do with that release valve, you know, that just going all out. I think that was part of what I think when that happened, and Sabbat then picked up, I stuck my head in the sand from what had happened and got straight on with the band and focused everything on music, because I didn't want to deal with that. And I never really dealt with it. And you know, you've been quite open about situations you've had in your life that you've dealt with down the line, and it does come up a lot later, doesn't it? You hide these things to the back of your mind, and out of nowhere, these things something can trigger it, can't it? It's something brings it back. And I think when we're young, we don't realize these things. We don't realize how to talk about things. I never sat down and had therapy or spoke to anyone about any of this. And for a 17-year-old kid to go through something like that, I mean, it's one of the most traumatic things in my life, you know. So it definitely shaped me and definitely made me who I am, because it made me very determined to do what I wanted to do. And with the health stuff, I felt I had to do it to realize his vision in a way. That was my whole thing of doing it. But also through doing that, it brought a lot of old memories back and stuff up to the surface. So that was around that time when I decided to knock the drinking on the head and the partying on the head, because it was bringing a lot of old memories back up with it. So, and I feel great now. I mean, the whole thing now, for me, it's kind of like I'm on a whole new life now, obviously, with everything that's happened with me in the last sort of 3 or 4 years, you know. Yeah, for sure. I mean, good for you. I'm super proud of you, and I'm super happy for you. And, you know, I could see how, you know, you're playing his songs on a nightly basis, you know, or a weekly basis when you're doing festivals. And, you know, it's like, I could see how that would bring up these memories of that. Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. And sort of being connected to the guys again, because obviously not seeing the guys for 30 years, you always, you know, as a person, I always associate Dave with those guys as well. So yeah, it obviously jigged something in my head somewhere down the line. And like I say, it brought a lot of old memories back, but in a good way. It's kind of, I think it's cleared the memories as well. You know, it was very cathartic. So it's a good thing to do.
Yeah. That's awesome. That's really cool.
So yeah.
You started producing, you've done Kill Switch Engage, did Trivium. Does those 2 records play a role in Judas Priest coming to you? You know, those are some pretty big, well-respected metal records.
I'll tell you how this happened, and this was a bit out of the blue, really. it was Miller from Creator, the band Creator. He was out in at the Frankfurt. Is it Frankfurt? Music Messe out in the big NAMM thing out there.
The NAMM of Germany. Yep.
Yeah, he was out there in, I think it was 2016. I think 2017. It would probably 16. And he went. The ESP, the guitar company, had a one of these drunken dinners one night, and Glenn was there because he's with ESP.
Drunken dinners.
Yeah. And so Miller,
are you sober? You're sober at this point, right?
No, I wasn't at this. I wasn't there.
Okay. Gotcha.
So Miller is there with Glenn at the dinner, and he's saying, they're just talking about metal, and Miller's saying to Glenn, what you're going to do for the next Priest record, and he says, well, we're going to get Tom Allen again, and Miller's like, you need Andy Sneap, because I'd done 2 albums with Creator, and obviously Miller knew I was really into Priest and into the old metal stuff, so. Miller, I get this phone call. I forget who I was mixing, but Miller runs off to the toilet at midnight, calling me from the toilet. Like, Andy, I'm talking to Glenn Tipton. You have to call their management. He's interested. So I called Jane Andrews the following Monday and said, look, I understand my name's been put in the hat for this. I'm not far from Glenn. I'm only a couple of hours away. How about we get together and have a chat and see if we can make something work? So I went down the following week and down to Glenn's house, and Richie was there, and it was all very nice and chatty, and we're chatting away, and doorbell rings, and in walks Rob Halford, and it's like
shit,
and I'm like, hello,
Hey, Rob Halford,
know you were going to
how's it going?
But we had a great time actually, just chatting away, just talking about the old albums and what I liked about the albums, and I was trying to tell them where I thought they should be going with things. Like, I don't know why they should listen to me, but I was just telling them what, my thoughts really. And I obviously, it obviously rang true with what they were feeling as well. And they said, well, look, why don't we get you together with Tom and see how well you and Tom get on? So we had another meeting where we listened to the demos, and Tom was there as well. And everyone just got on great. And it was just a very natural way of working, really. We decided we'd, try the album, see how we went, and we got Scott over to start the drums at Glenn's place. And it was as simple as that. This is pretty close to actual recording. Yeah, this is on the demo phase. They'd been doing all the songwriting before that, and when they got me and Tom along, they got, I think, sort of 26 ideas in a good format. Some of them really sort of rough demos, but they got sort of 26 ideas to pick from, where we sort of picked it down to 17, 18 songs, and then we took it from there, really, sort of whittled them down a little bit more. But from sort of meeting in August, September, we started recording, I think, sort of March the following year. So that's the time we gave it to. I put the demos together a bit better for them, programmed the drums a bit better and got them sound a bit more songwrite, and then got the sort of templates from that. And then we got Scott over. Do they write together? Do they, Yeah, they sort of, Glenn, they had sort of writing sessions with Glenn, Richie and Robb together. And they'd sort of roughly program drums and just get arrangements together. And Robb would put like a scratch vocal, whether he was just singing nonsense or singing one verse, 3 times, it'd be like that, So you just get a feel of how the song arrangement, and then getting Scott involved and then getting them jamming the songs just to get a bit of push and pull there. And then, you start hearing where an extra bit can go in, or a fill can be accentuated somewhere, it's that kind of thing. So we had a little bit sort of pre-production before actually recording the songs, but it really helped.
That's cool.
Make it feel a bit more bandwidth, band-wise,
Yeah, that's awesome. That's killer to hear that. That's cool to hear that they still like play together, like that. Well,
that was a big thing. Yeah. I call it laptop metal when one of the band members turns up with his laptop. He's like, right, I've got the songs. We're going to play to the laptop.
Everything. That's so many bands nowadays. It's crazy.
Yeah. So Yeah, it was good because it definitely gave us a different feel. And one thing I found out actually, which actually I don't say it's the wrong way to do it, but Scott told me that this was the first album they did where they did the drums first since Painkiller.
Oh wow!
Cool. It's always been, they'd work around demos and then they brought Scott in to do the drums afterwards, which seems so strange to me because if there's any sort of groove, I know he's going to be following kind of what the drums were doing on the demo, but you want the drums to be the proper backbone of the whole thing.
Yeah,
as
for sure.
So,
and he's a killer drummer. I mean, they're all killer. It's like Richie's fucking insane guitar player.
Ridiculous, isn't it? Yeah. I mean, I listen to him play, and it's just like bastard.
Super clean and he's a badass.
It's picking as well. I don't know another player like him that can do alternate picking where it does sound just like down picking. He's so accurate on the string the way he plays it. It's just usually there's a slight alternation, but he's just so on it. Yeah, but he's so on it. I don't know if it's the angle he can get the pick at, but he's like you say, he's so super clean the way he plays. Yeah.
He's killer.
Richie really reminds me of the old school. I mean, I hate to say it, but the rock star type guitar player. He is a guitar hero. He's the real deal. Yeah. Richie is. Yeah.
Fuck yeah. Fuck yeah. Totally. Yeah, he kills it up there.
Yeah.
He's got the sunglasses and shit, and he's got the fucking shoulders. And I'm like, you fucking, I love it. Yeah. Don't change a thing.
Yeah. Yeah, and actually, I got thrown into that situation, but I don't think people realize, but I had 3 weeks notice before the first date. I had 3 afternoons rehearsals with him, and it was like, there you go, on stage, and fuck. And it
hold on now. Let's just stay on let's stay into the recording and like all of that little, like, how does that, how is your first experience? I mean, this has got to be like a dream come true. Like, this has got to be like in some way, I mean, I'm sure you're playing it cool and you're like, hey, this is just a job and all, but like, this is fucking Judas Priest.
Oh, inside, I'm driving home at night to get fucking Judas Priest. Yeah. Yeah, of course. I've looked up to these guys all my life as, I remember watching them on TV when I was 14, 15, and they were on the Tube in the UK, or the Old Grey Whistle Test. And it was, this is like next level, this is the top level stuff, isn't it? So I really felt like this was a highlight of my career doing this record, definitely. And to be working with Tom Allen as well. I mean, the guy did the first, 2 or 3 Sabbath albums. He'd done all the Priest records, the classic Priest records.
Yeah. British Steel, Screaming.
Yeah.
Hellbent.
No, he didn't do that one.
Oh, we do Hellbent. Okay, gotcha.
No, so he came along when he mixed Unleashed in the East. So he went from Unleashed through till Turbo, that whole period.
Wow. And fucking Unleashed. Oh my God. What a fucking album.
Yeah. First Def Leppard album. He did the first Def Leppard album. Yeah.
On Through the Night or High and Dry?
On Through the Night, wasn't it? I think.
Okay. Yeah. Some people in America, I don't think that one came out till later. So some people consider High and Dry the first record.
Right. Okay. But yeah, I mean, Tom, obviously a massive sort of back catalogue of work that he's done. So to work alongside him with the Priest guys, it was a dream come true, really. And it just an all-around great experience. I mean, Robb is a total perfectionist in the studio. I've just read his book, actually. It was on about me pushing him, constantly. But it was actually me and Tom. Because Tom was wanting everything double tracked and wanted the choruses stacked up big like they used to do it.
Yeah. Fuck yeah.
So
that's the shit that we want. That's the shit that we love.
And actually, it was surprising hearing how Tom made Robb, work with the harmonies. There's little tricks that they do that I've cottoned on to now. But little things that they did that straight away, it took me back to like British Steel and the classic albums, because the way the harmonies fit together and the way they stack the choruses up. So it was interesting. And Tom's got a really good ear. He's really good at hearing the harmonies. He's a trained keyboard player. So he really understands sort of music inside out in that respect. So I was sort of going after the attitude at times and the punctuation and the delivery. Tom was really up on sort of the note choice and that side of things. So it really worked well, you know. And when we were comping the vocals, I mean, we had so many tracks to comp from. I'd say 95% of the time, me and him would be picking the same take. You know, what do you think of that? On. Well, if you want that one, then I want the line from this one. All right, I'll trade you that. You know. So
how many vocals would end up on a chorus? Like if you went for a big chorus, what are you doing? Like 6, 8 vocals?
Yeah, I'd say, because we'd always have the main one double tracked, and then we'd have a minor third, and then an octave down of the minor third would always be in there as well. And these would all be doubled. And then there might be a fifth thrown in.
An octave down of the harmony. That's crazy.
Yeah, that's a proper Priest trick there. And as soon as I heard that, I was like, and Tom was like, yeah, that's what we do. So, there was that trick. And then obviously we'd try a few other things, you know, an octave up and where we could take it. And it was always there's always that thing where, I don't know if you found this, but when you're singing in a really comfortable zone, and then you try the harmony can sometimes make a more interesting melodies, and you can bring that in more on the second verse type thing. So you can start you can start on the minor third for the second verse to take it to a better place, so it feels like the song's growing. So there's always little tricks like that, so you're not just repeating yourself all the way down the line, trying to make the second verse a little busier with words, just so it feels like it's picking up a little bit. There's all, you know, all the tricks, you know.
Yeah, that's killer. I love hearing that shit. That's awesome. Yeah, and that's the way to do it. Like you can't, like, so many bands now just cut and paste 1, 2, 3 on their fucking choruses, and like, no, you gotta do something else.
I was really keen to have different takes on the choruses as well, because I think, you know, if you do cut and paste it, I think your mind recognizes that. I think you can hear it in your head, even if you haven't. If you don't hear it physically, you know you've already heard it. And it's the same with guitar takes. Where I remember when Pro Tools came along in the 90s, and we were all cut and pasting Guitarist. And I've so got away from that now. I mean, I was as guilty as anyone of piecing things together in Pro Tools, but I think it's boring. I think just because something's played different doesn't mean it's wrong. And I think naturally it should be different in a way. So I think vocally as well, you know, even if it's not quite as good or technically as good, if it's got something else, if it's got a little harder edge to it or a little bit of gruffness to it, the listener picks up on that. It doesn't realize, but it feels fresher. So I think it's important for maybe the backing vocals get cut and pasted, but the main vocal, at least the focal point, should be a different take, I think, you know.
Totally agree. 100% agree, for sure. Yeah. Always make a point to do that. Yeah, it's important. You're right. I think people. That's what makes it sound human. You know, like all those little flaws and those little differences and those little changes of phrase or whatever. It's like that's the difference between a fucking computer doing it and a human doing it.
Exactly. Yeah. And why would you want to hear the same chorus 3 times anyway? You want it to go somewhere. You want the song to actually take you somewhere, don't you? You don't want to keep coming back to it.
Well, it's funny. You think about like all the 70s bands, like they always used to do that big, like they'd go 2 frets up. You know, Barry Manilow always did the big 2 frets up chorus.
It's the Eurovision's key change, isn't it? Yeah,
that's right. The Eurovision key change, totally.
Yeah.
You know, you got to re-sing it anyway. There's no pace in it.
Double chorus at the end, and we're going up. Yeah.
Where somewhere along the line, though, you start having a pretty serious discussion with Glenn Tipton, and you know, you've told me this story before, but I mean, it's like it's got to be one of the strangest conversations and, you know, most amazing conversations of your life, you know. But at some point he comes to you.
Well, it was when we were doing the album. It was obvious, you know, we knew Glenn had got problems. And I actually said to Robb at the time, you know, what do you think you're going to do when it comes to touring? And Robb says, you know, it's down to Glenn. ideally we need someone who can step in if it's not happening. And I said, well, I was suggesting a few people, and who were all American actually. And Robb looked at me and said, no, I think we need an English guy. And just sort of deadpan looked at me, and I didn't think anything of it. I just didn't, and I it didn't really come up in conversation, but obviously I knew there was issues. And then they had 2 weeks worth of rehearsals in the UK before the American tour was due to start. And then they were going to go and do sort of 10 days of pre-production in, I don't know where, I can't remember where it is, it was out on the East Coast anyway, in the US before the tour started. And I was helping out. I was getting some gear together for them. I got the laptop together for playing the intros and stuff on there. So I was getting that all rigged up, and I got the interface, and I was nipping down to rehearsals to see them. And I got the laptop, and I saw Glenn struggling when I went down to start the second week, and I phoned him up and said, look, we've got the facilities. Do you want me to get, do you want to do backing tracks, or, we could do something where you're playing a simpler version and we've got some other stuff that's on backing track. And Glenn said, no, that's not the Judas Priest thing to do. I don't want to do that. I don't feel honest doing that kind of thing. And I said, well, what do you want to do? And he says, I'm going to try this week and see how it goes. And, he said, when are you next coming down? And I said, I'll be down on Thursday. So I took the remaining equipment down to the rehearsals with me on the Thursday. And I walked in, and something had been said. And I think Glenn was in the control room, because it's the studio where they'd recorded a few things. They'd done the Nostradamus album, and they were rehearsing in the live room here. And Robb came out and said, oh, Glenn wants to talk to you. And I walked in. I said, yeah, what's up? He says, oh, I can't do it. You know what's going on. Do you think you can do it? And I was like, you mean me do the whole set, or parts of the set, or what? It's just a whole thing. I was like, well, yeah, I'll give, don't say no, do you? I'll give it my best shot. But I was literally, like I said earlier, that was 3 weeks before the tour was due to start. I didn't have a visa. I couldn't actually get in. I couldn't get into America because the weather on the East Coast was so bad. They got the snowstorms happening out there at the time. So
holy shit.
I had to learn 25 songs in 3 weeks, and I got out there with 3 days to spare. We had 3 afternoon run-throughs. So we basically had 3 run-throughs of the set. And then the first show in front of 6,000 people. and it's like, fuck. And my head is just spinning. I'm just like, just trying to remember all these songs. And people that go to me, well, you know Judas Priest, you know how the songs go. It's like, I know how the songs go. I don't know how to play the fucking songs. I've got to figure this out. And you know what it's like? It's
they're not as easy as they sound. There's a lot of little details.
I'll tell you the other thing as well. There's a lot of bits that are very similar as well. There's a lot of bits that are in the same sort of mode or the same scale. And when you're learning a lot of stuff in one go, trying to take it all in, as well as the pressure and the, having to travel and the, having whole different crew you've never worked with, a different monitoring system you've never worked with, different equipment you've never worked with. You're on a stage.
Oh, are you playing? You're playing through Glenn's equipment. You're playing through Glenn's equipment.
No, I was playing through my equipment. Yeah.
Okay. Gotcha.
But it was, the whole thing was such a vastly different experience to anything I'd experienced before. And you've got people online like, but it's not moving around much. It's not, well, what do you expect?
I'm trying to remember 25 songs I've learned the last 3 weeks.
And thankfully, Richie was like, look, just learn the rhythms. we'll get a few leads in as we go along. You know, I've got it covered. And that was really the approach we had to take with the whole thing. It was like, it really was that up to the wire. And I don't think fans at the time realized the situation or realized the whole scenario. They just sort of saw Glenn as not in the band, but he is in the band. But I was basically helping them out. It was like, Andy, can you help us out here? It was that sort of situation. And it was the other thing as well. I hadn't been playing really. I've been in sort of producer mode, you know, all the way through doing the Priest record. So, you know, it's like your hands get strong. You don't just jump into a tour. You have to get match fit with it. So it was, you know, with the nerves as well. It was pretty terrifying, to be honest. But I'm pleased I did it, and I'm pleased we pulled it off as well. You know,
I mean,
so.
I watched the first thing because when you told me, I was like, oh my God, that's fucking amazing. So I watched those. You look fine. Like you looked like, I didn't think I was just like, fuck, he's pulling it off killer. You know, like you looked cool. Like you're, you know, it's not like Glenn ever ran around the stage anyway.
No,
so
there was that other thing as well where, you know, if I was running around like a madman on stage, not that I could because I was trying to remember the songs, but if I was, everyone would be going, who's that guy up there?
I know. Who's Yannick Gears up there?
Exactly. So you couldn't really win. And it was like I said to you earlier on about, you know, having to get at least 10, 15 gigs under your belt before it starts gelling. It was a case of that here as well, because I hadn't played on a stage with these guys before. And you know, even though, you know, Rich has been in the band 10 years, so he's done plenty of tours and found his place in the band. I remember seeing him early on and sort of thinking, oh, he's, you know, he looks a bit out of place to the other guys. But then when I saw him again, he was perfect for him. So he's really found his little spot in the band, you know, not little spot, but he's found his spot, you know. So it does take time. It always takes time for a new guy on stage to fit in. And I think by the time we came back with Deep Purple, I felt a lot more comfortable with it and a lot more confident up there. And it's bound to be like that. You know, it always takes time. As you know, having new members in the band, it just takes the time for that natural connection up there, doesn't it?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I have to say, like, out of everything that you just talked about, the one thing that stood out to me the most is that Glenn was like, that's not the Judas Priest way. Yeah. Like, I can't do that. That would be fake. Like, that's so much fucking integrity. Like, there's so many fucking people who would just be like, oh, I know, you know, like, no, like, I'll put some fucking bag. No, like, he was like, no, like, that's not the Judas Priest way. That's really cool to hear, man. I mean, that's
Glenn's great.
Like, that totally made me like fucking, that totally like fucking made me happy. That just filled me with joy. Like, seriously, like, I was like, that's fucking amazing.
Yeah. And I tell you, it's tough because Glenn's a good friend now, you know, after sort of working with him for a few years, and you know, they're all good friends actually, but seeing what the guy's going through, and he's so determined, and I see him sat in the studio and he'll be struggling, if I'm honest, but he's so determined, and it must be so frustrating for him, someone of that, you know, who's lived his whole life for Judas Priest, you know, 50 years, and it's a rotten thing to actually, you know, to actually happen to anyone, but to actually happen to a guitarist of his caliber. I you know, anything I can do to help, really. So, yeah, with the next record, where he's still involved, he's still very much part of Judas Priest, and he's going to be involved on the songwriting. And if we can get, you know, even if we have to piece bits together, it's still going to be a major part of it. So it's just the physical aspect of him getting up there and doing it. It's just, and especially with what's happening now in the world, it's just, you know, it's just not something you can consider at the moment. So I don't know. I don't know where it's going to go in the future. I'm kind of, it's a case of just see what turns out, really. Yeah.
I mean, I think it's amazing that he's so, you know, like, to me, it's not surprising to hear that he's so determined when he's doing it. You know, like, that's a guy who, in my opinion, I mean, not a lot of guitar players, like he was really evolved, man. Like there's been like multiple gigantic evolutions of Glenn Tipton.
Oh, there is.
You know
Absolutely.
what I mean?
Like, I tell you what, I've got the multi-tracks to Screaming and Defenders here, because just for learning bits and pieces. And you can hear him pushing you can hear him pushing himself on the solos. You know, it's always a little bit scrappy, and he's almost like playing beyond his capabilities, but you can tell he was wanting to go that extra step further, to a point of where by the time he got to Painkiller, his playing had come on leaps and bounds, hadn't it? When you hear where they'd gone from the sort of the early blues stuff to where he ended up.
Yeah, totally.
He was always pushing himself. So yeah, fair play
I mean,
to
like
him,
you listen to Unleashed is like metal, but still bluesy. You know, you start getting to Screaming and Defenders, and it's like definitely more metal. Then by the time they got to Painkiller, it was like I heard him do all those sweeps, the Alex Skolnick, and I was like, "What the fuck?" I was like, "Holy shit, dude!" Like, you don't see guitar players making jumps like that 25 years into their career, you know, 20, whatever it was. 20,
people are usually quite settled in the way of playing, aren't they, by that point, and stuck in the way of playing as well. And that's what's impressive about Glenn, is that he was constantly looking to push his playing, and obviously he was putting the time in, you know. Yeah,
fuck yeah. I mean, this must have been exciting for you to just tour the world. You go and tour the fucking world with Judas Priest playing songs. Yeah. I know at one point when I saw you, you were telling me how you were like you're jamming deep cuts with Scott and Richie, and they're like, "Hey Rob, we're doing a Tyrant." Like, what do you think? I was just like, yes.
We kind of got this little thing going between the three of us where we figured out, I mean, because Richie knows all the songs somehow. Richie's played in covers bands all his life before. He was doing Lauren Harris and Priest. So, you know, every weekend or weeknight, I don't know how often he used to do it. He's got such a natural ear for picking stuff up. So Richie can learn stuff like that. And Scott knows it. So it's like, if I learn it, then maybe we can jam it. And with you know, things like Delivering the Goods and Tyrant and... there's a few of the other old ones that we were just jamming backstage, and it's like, just wait until Rob walks past the door and kick the door open. And Rob would be like, "Oh, that sounds good. We've not played that for a while." It's like, "Yeah, we've got it in the set." So and it was good.
So fucking awesome. That's so awesome to get. I mean, those are deep cuts that haven't been played for. Dude, I've never seen Tyrant. You know, that was fucking killer.
It was good because we'd have sort of one or two spots in the set where, you know, we could change things up. We kept the set pretty much the same. But
is that for his vocals, or why is that? Just because
you know, we'd have like the lighting set for certain songs, and like obviously the video screens for certain songs. So, and then we'd have one or two songs where it was a bit of we could slot things in. So we'd always, and it made it a little bit more interesting for us as well, you know, flying by the seat of our pants a little bit.
Yeah, totally.
You know, seeing who could remember what. So it was good.
How did Halford take it? Like, how did Halford take doing Tyrant or Delivering the Goods for the first time in 20 years or whatever it was?
Yeah, it's great. He was into it. Yeah,
killer.
Yeah, Rob's cool. I mean, he's totally open to ideas like that. So he's, obviously, if he doesn't want to start the set with anything that's too high range. If it's something that's sort of a mid-range thing, we can get it on quite early in the set. If it's, you know, if we want to throw something in there, but we sit there and discuss it, and you know, after we've done it a couple of nights, you know, did it work? Did it feel like the set dropped, or do you think the fans got it? It was that sort of conversation, you know.
Yeah, right.
So, and yeah, we'd watch it back on the films that were on Instagram, and, you know, cringe. Yeah. But no, it's good.
I heard he doesn't warm up. Is that true?
Cup of tea, walks on stage. Yeah.
Fucking bastard.
Yeah, we listen to Dio and Sabbath in the dressing room, and then straight on. Yeah. Imagine if he did warm up.
Oh my God, that's crazy to me. That's insane to me.
Cup of tea, and he's happy, and he's on stage. Yeah.
I'd love to get him on the podcast. That'd be fucking awesome.
Yeah, maybe you should. You should get him on. Yeah.
It'd be great. It'd be great.
Yeah.
I think that's awesome. I mean, I told you when I saw you too that I was so proud of you and so fucking happy for you just to see you up there. You looked, by the time I saw you, that was with Deep Purple, so it was like fucking you were killing it. And it was awesome. I got to say the one thing too, I was blown away. I'm going to tell you right now, I was blown away. I always hated the song Turbo Lover.
Yeah.
Hated it. And fucking live, that song was a fucking banger. Like
it's different live, isn't it? Yeah.
It's way different. I don't know if you guys are playing it heavier or what you guys are doing, but like,
no, I think it's just the actually as well. Let's listen to the multi-tracks of Turbo. It's one of the best guitar tones they ever got on a record. That is, but it's just so keyboard heavy or guitar synth heavy that you don't really notice it. But the tone is really good that they got back then. But they live, obviously, you've got the power, and when it's more guitar based, it seems to just fit into the picture a lot better, doesn't it?
Yeah, I was like, whoa, like fucking, I don't remember this song being this heavy. It was great. It was awesome. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was fun. I love seeing you in all the leather too.
Yeah, well,
I mean, I guess it wasn't too far removed from Sabbat, but it was definitely the next step up.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Hell yeah, man. Well, dude, I really enjoyed you being on No Fucking Regrets, man.
Yeah, it's been good. Yeah, it's been I've there's a few things out there that have never been out before.
And one that still isn't.
Yeah.
We'll keep that one quiet. All
right, cool.
But no, I really appreciate it. It was great catching up with you, man.
Yeah, you too.
For a long time since we had a good catch up.
Yeah. All right, bud.
All right, dude.
Ladies and gentlemen, that right there, producer extraordinaire, Judas Priest guitarist, Mr. Andy Sneap on No Fucking Regrets.
There you go.
With Robb Flynn.